Minutes.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, just wanted to, I think you got the email from Karen about the upcoming public hearings on the 1st of February. What we're going to do is we're proposing to put the business items at the end because we announced the meeting beginning at 5:30 for public hearings. So we'd suggest that be the case, the business items at the end. And then just wanted to let you know, I talked with the mayor about that joint meeting with City Council that the mayor wanted to have, and we were planning on doing that in February sometime, but with all that's going on, and I didn't have anything specific that I felt like we needed to address right away, and so because of that, she suggested that we try for March 1st, and that would be when we hold that workshop. So I will send out more information to you, but her desire for that workshop is to discuss strategic planning for the city. And I think that's a good thing to discuss with this group. So those are the only two things I had for announcements.
Well, I hope it's not the first because I can't come.
I'll let her know.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Approval of minutes. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, do we have a counselor on here to give us an update for city council?
Councilman Haverfield was unable to attend tonight.
Anything you want to share, Rodney?
So, Madam Chair and Commissioners, I will report on the 18th, January 18th meeting. The first one was Heron Ridge, number 2. That one got approved with all conditions. Feather Cove, number 4, was also approved with all conditions. There was a zoning text amendment that came before you for consideration of changes for storage units. And the applicant was U-Haul, and they had a specific project in mind. Ended up that they didn't show up at the meeting, and they contacted me at the meeting, let me know that they were not pursuing it because they moved their proposed project to another city, to Eagle. And so City Council heard that that was the case, and they opened the public hearing and denied it. So the next one was for Salazar Point. That, if you remember, this one was the one that had Stella's, I think Stella's Point next to it. And they had to go through Stella's Point to get into the subdivision. And the City Council did approve it with conditions that they enter into a development agreement to increase the open space from 8 to 15% and to require that those homes directly next to Stella's Point, that they be only single-story homes instead of the 2 that they were being proposed. So that was their compromise to approve that. The next one was annexation and zoning to RA on Meredith Court and a development agreement, and that was approved. That was just a single home and an addition of another single family home. Let's see, the next one was annexation and zoning to RS12, and that was on 345 West Dooley. That was for utilities, and that got approved as well. And then multiple ordinances were read and had no problems with those either.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, business item number 1, Parker. They put the troublemakers in the back row over there. Is that what it is? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners.
Thrown.
Can you hear me back here all right?
Yes.
Okay. The action requested from you tonight is the recommendation of approval or denial for the final plat of Sharps Orchard subdivision, which is located on Birch Lane, east of Franklin Boulevard. The surrounding zoning is county to the north, RS6 to the southeast, and RP to the west. History, this body recommended approval of annexation in April of last year and approved the preliminary plat, and then City Council approved the annexation in June of last year. The project proposes 33 buildable lots and 2 common lots and 2 open space lots on 6.46 acres. The findings of fact in this case, a project is within city limits and is zoned RS4. It conforms to the approved preliminary plat for Sharps Orchard, and it conforms to the applicable subdivision and zoning standards. Should you find the final plat approvable, the staff recommended conditions are those listed in the staff report, as well as any that you would wish to add. And here's a potential motion for you, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions?
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and move to recommend to City Council the approval of final plat for Sharps Orchard subdivision at 7928 Birch Lane in RS4 zoning district for Taylor Schmidt, SI Construction LLC, with all conditions of staff.
Do we have a second? Michelle, okay. It's been moved and seconded to accept. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will go on. Okay. Action item number 2, again, Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The action requested from you tonight for this one is final plat approval for Jasper Ridge number 1 subdivision. This is off of Orchard Avenue, west of Middleton Road. This was formerly known as Chase subdivision. Surrounding zoning is RS6 to the north, RS 8.5 to the south, and then RS6 to the west, and east is in the county. The history, this was approved in October of last year. The project proposes 66 buildable lots with 9 common lots on 17.51 acres. The findings of fact in this case is within city's limits, zoned RS6, conforms to the preliminary plat for Jasper Ridge subdivision, formerly Chase subdivision, and it conforms to the applicable subdivision and zoning standards. Should you feel comfortable to approve the project, the staff recommended conditions are listed in the staff report, as well as any that you would like to add. There's a potential motion. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we recommend to City Council approval of the final plat, approval for Jasper Ridge number 1 subdivision at 0 Middleton Road, including the 66 single-family lots and 9 common lots for Schultz Development representing Endurance Holdings LLC with all the conditions of staff.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recommend approval. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And number 3, Christie.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested from you this evening is the approval or denial of the first one-year extension request for the East Ridgeview subdivision number 1, located north of Ustick Road on the west side of North Franklin Boulevard. This development proposes 94 residential lots and 3 common lots on 25.51 acres and is being, the extension is requested due to market conditions at the moment. They're just slowing down a little bit. This would then be approved to expire on December 21st of 2022. I will stand for any questions.
Yeah, quick question, Christie.
Yes.
The market conditions, is that due to a slowdown in the overall market or just the difficulty of getting subs and things going? Like shortage, labor shortage, things like that?
So Commissioner Kirkman, I'm not exactly sure. He did not clarify in the letter. It just says due to market conditions, but I can assume that it's probably a materials issue.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion that we grant the one-year extension for East Ridgeview Phase 1 final plat to December 21st, 2022.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the extension for 1 year. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public hearing will start at 7 o'clock. We have 5 items on the agenda, and we'll go through them. And the procedure is the applicant will come up and give their spiel on what they want to do, and then we will hear from staff, and then we will open it up to the public for public testimony. And then if we have a large amount of people that are going to be testifying, we have a 3-minute limit. I have a little sign that'll tell you 30 seconds and when your time is up. So we try and keep it orderly and try not to keep everybody here till midnight if we can, and still get everybody on the record and getting to say what they need to say. So if you bear with us, we got 5 minutes until 7.
You're expecting to use it? My guess is it's going to be number 3.
Actually. I don't think so. So that-
None?
So I'm getting here early in case there
Left a note for He called me this morning and he's in Florida right now. So he's like, yeah, thanks for leaving Nanny chocolate for us.
What are you doing? I mean, I see your name in the paper a lot now.
Really? Well, this is. Yeah, I can imagine the school zone stuff. Well, did you three guys plan this in advance that you guys were gonna take over?
Like Chatel, I think they've got like 5 copies of it.
But it's unusual to have new people take over. Yeah. Yeah, it was. But I don't know, maybe that's what needed. Baptism of fire, that's all.
I can only imagine what that was like.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock, so let's get the applicant up for public hearing item number 1.
This is a little intrusive, but I think it'll be all right. Madam Chair, Commissioners, good evening. I'm here to present a short plat and a rezone for Sharon subdivision.
Can you give us your name and address for the record?
Sorry, I will. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Lardy, Levitt Associates, 1324 First Street South. That is much louder. So I'm here to bring to you, or to present Sharon subdivision. It's a short plat. We need to rezone. See if I can advance this. Oops. There it is. So it's current zoned RA. Proposed zoning is RS6, which is its surrounding zones. It's surrounded on all sides by RS6. It fits within the comprehensive plan, medium density residential. Next. So it's 0.83 acres. It's four lots, bringing us to a net density of 4.82. Our center line runs to the center of the canal. The Phyllis Canal is on our south boundary there. And there's an easement running parallel with the canal. It's 20 foot off the top of bank, and it encompasses the maintenance road. And our road will exist outside of that access road. There is a small buffer between there. We're planning on putting a fence there to protect us from the canal. We had a neighborhood meeting, and here's a little bit closer view. So during our neighborhood meeting, some of the concerns were density. We're a 1-for-1 home, lot for lot, back to back. The two homes on the far east, off the cul-de-sac to the north, those were of some concern. They were asking about 2-story homes. Of course, the building footprint with our center line going to the center of the canal, our buildings get compressed into a smaller area, so our building footprints have to be smaller. So 2-story homes, we're gonna need to build up to get a decent sized footprint for the market share. We can do some things to try and help that. The biggest concern is those 2 homes on the far east. As you can see, we only have 1 home that's there on that backside there. Let me see if I can go ahead at one slide. This doesn't really help. There's a storm drainage pond on that north side, which helps provide a little bit of a buffer between that lot and our new structure. So their home is pushed back to near their setback line. So it's about 15 feet off of north of our boundary line. And then our home is, the structure we're gonna build is actually gonna be 24 feet south of that due to our storm drainage pond. So we're providing some buffer there. There may be some chances of moving of maybe getting creative with some windows. Maybe not, so it's not a direct fishbowl. There is a row of trees. Oops, sorry, button happy. There's a row of trees there along that. They thin out in the winter, so I understand that they could be bony there. But I think something could be worked out to help minimize the exposure to those neighbors. Okay, so access is going to be a common shared driveway off of Sunny Lane, which is a local road. 4 lots, we're going to add about 36 average daily trips for a subdivision for 4 lots, which is minimal. And so our builder has provided us some possible elevations showing similar types of materials and design concepts. Go back. Sewer and water will be provided off of extensions from the sewer and water in Sunny Lane. Pressurized irrigation will also be extended into the site from Sunny Lane. With that, I will stand for any questions.
I have a question. Have you considered maybe frosted glass for the second-story windows? That way people would get the light, but they wouldn't be able to see their neighbors?
It has been discussed. I can ask the builder to come up and discuss that if
Just
you'd
an
like.
option, that way you,
It could be an option. It could be. Some of the designs, they have minimal windows, like this one on the top here, even though it's tall, it only has 2 small windows
yeah,
looking
up at
out
the
that
top of the
side.
ceiling, and again, you get the light in and you can't see
But
anything.
yes, frosted glass was discussed.
Okay, we may have questions after public testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. The action requested from you tonight is the zoning map amendment from RA to RS6 with a potential development agreement, should you seek that. The subdivision short plat as well for the Sharon subdivision. The property is in city limits and is currently zoned RA. It is surrounded by RS6 zoning. The single-family homes all around it. To the west is RA, and that's a single-family home, which is not a part of the request tonight. The public utilities are all available and have adequate capacity. Here's a expanded out map if you want to go back and look at that some more. The applicable regulations for a zoning map amendment needs to be in harmony with the comprehensive plan. It needs to provide for a proposed use or set of uses that would be compatible. It needs to establish an area zoning that is compatible with the adjoining districts, not create a spot zone, and be in the interest of the public. Single-family home is obviously an approved use in the RS zone, and it's intended for low-density urban single-family residential uses. The only correspondence we received was from the building department with the Title IV requirement. Forestry had some revisions required for their landscape plan. Typical fire department correspondence, and then engineering division. Those comments were all in the staff report for you. The land uses, as I said, it's surrounded all by single-family homes. The proposed use would match the uses in the surrounding area. The future land use is medium density in the RS6 zoning district, fits within that designation. The NAMPA has determined that it's in the public interest to provide additional residential development opportunities. The nearest schools, Nampa High School is 1.8 miles. The West Middle School is 1.3. Centennial Elementary School is 2.1 miles. Regarding the plat, the development proposes 4 buildable lots on 0.83 acres, which is a gross density of 4.82 dwelling units an acre. The analysis for the plat because it's slated for development in the RS6 zone. The first 2 units require 6,000 square feet, and then additional units. Let's see, that's not correct. So each building needs to be on a lot that fits within the RS6. This was proposed with our old subdivision code, so the lots need to meet or exceed 6,000 square feet. The short plat subdivision are exempt from lot averaging. Short plats are also exempt from lot compatibility. All master lots meet the required width and length requirements. Right-of-way has been dedicated for the project. As the applicant has stated, there is a proposed shared driveway. They would need to record an access agreement for that drive to access the rest of the subdivision. There's no open space proposed. The conditions are those in the staff report, mostly consisting of those required by engineering. There are a couple motions. We can either make them as one, or I can break them down for you, but I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Parker? Okay. All right, we'll go to public testimony. I have the sign-up sheet, and the only person on here is Ethan Thompson. And you said yes or no for speaking. Do you want to speak, or we just put you on the record as for? Okay, come on up. When you get up here, give us your name and address for the record.
I'm Ethan Thompson from 9509 Deer Flat Road, Nampa. And I'm just the builder and the developer on this project. And I just wanted to come up and say that we're looking to build some real nice houses on this and, be within a good starter home price for someone that's looking to buy something right now. And I know they just showed the outsides on these, but the internals will be very nice as well. We're not looking for any, low-grade builder standards or anything like that. So they will be nice quality. So
Okay,
that's all. Thank you.
thank you. Any other people that want to testify for, against, or undecided on this matter? Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant or staff? I'd entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. So there's 2 motions, or if you can put it into one, that's great.
And Madam Chair, I think this is a quick, good little infill project. So if there's no further discussion, I'll just make a motion that we recommend City Council approval of the zoning map amendment from RA suburban residential to RS6, single-family residential zoning districts and subdivision plat short for Sharon subdivision, 4 single-family lots with a gross net density of 4.82 for TV Group LLC with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this will go on, oh, no, any opposed? I'm pretty sure everybody's agreeing. This will go on to City Council. Okay, public hearing item number 2.
Madam Chair, I'll recuse myself on this one.
Okay. Get out. Don't sneak out the back door. Okay, do we have the applicant?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. My name is Blaine Womer, Womer Engineering. Our office is located at 4355 West Emerald Street in Boise. We are the civil engineering firm for Mr. Lance Thusen on this project, and I'll be introducing it. The Chisholm Estates project comprises of 126.27 acres located on the south side of Amity Avenue between Railroad Street and Happy Valley Road. We are requesting annexation of the property in conjunction with zoning designations of RS6, single-family residential with 6,000 square foot minimum lots, RMH, residential multifamily, BC, community business, and IL, light industrial. In addition to the zoning requests, we have submitted a preliminary plat and planned unit development application. Within the RS6 zone, we are proposing 191 lots on 64.33 acres. Within the RMH zone, we are proposing one 15.86 acre lot. In the BC zone, we are proposing 2 lots totaling 5.24 acres and 11 lots of light industrial totaling 40.84 acres. The development includes 30.83 acres, which results in 29.9% of the total area of common open space. Excuse me. The open space includes lots interspersed throughout the development and the enhancement of the Indian Creek corridor. This enhancement is the continuation of the work associated with the Indian Creek Estates subdivision approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission last year. Jim Meehan with South Beck and Baird Landscape Architects will be presenting a description of the planned open space and Indian Creek enhancement after my presentation. As confirmed in the staff report, the proposed uses in the Chisholm Estates are consistent with the city's future land use map designation, community mixed use. We have reviewed the staff report and the conditions of approval and agree with them as written. I would like to take a minute to address 2 written comments that we received that the city received from the public that were included in the staff report. The 2 public comments were emails from Mr. Brian Warwick and Miss Jessica Curtis. The emails were related to the traffic generated by this project, specifically along Amity Avenue. During the processing of this project with the city, a traffic impact study was prepared to address the impact of the proposed project on area traffic circulation. The findings in the city-approved TIS were the basis for the conditions of approval issued by the city engineer's office. These conditions include pavement widening, curb and gutter, sidewalk, and landscaping within the dedicated 50-foot half-width section in Happy Valley Road, Amity Avenue, and Railroad Street. These improvements are in addition to the full improvements of the interior streets within the development. The conditions of approval specifically address 2 of the concerns mentioned in Mr. Warwick's email. The project is conditioned to improve Amity Avenue to 1 lane in each direction with a continuous center turn lane between Meehan Lane and the Columbia High School south entrance. Additionally, the project is conditioned to improve the frontage of the not apart parcel, which is on the south side of Amity Avenue, just west of the proposed RMH. This concludes my introduction to the project. I would like to have Jim come up and talk about the Indian Creek, if that's okay at this time. But I would entertain any questions that the commission may have.
Probably after public testimony.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Jim Mayan, 2002 South Vista Avenue, Boise, Idaho, 83705. We're excited to work with this project because of its continuation of what we've done with Indian Creek Estates and kind of the joint vision I think these 2 owners have for improvements to Indian Creek, which I think for this part of town will be a great amenity. And so, do we have? So, our vision for this, as previously presented, is to daylight or, well, open up Indian Creek, mitigate some of its past use, improve it, make it safe for pathways on both sides, and be able to connect our pathway system from the south across 2 pedestrian bridges that our ownership actually already has that can be recycled and repurposed for this project. And then have pretty much, really what we see is a kind of a vision of what Caldwell did to Indian Creek. We've participated in a number of parts of the Greenbelt there. And open this up and have kind of some of our open space next to this, improve the floodplain for Indian Creek, kind of mitigate for some of the past industrial use. I grew up here in kind of in the mid-'80s. Mayan Lane is named after my dad. We had the 30 acres to the north. So you can't get much more involved in this project. My dad worked for Armors for 22 years. So we also have, I think, a pretty good network of pathways through the overall development. 29% open space, 19.7% open usable open space. So, you know, for us, this is, I think we have an ownership group on both sides of the creek that have a great vision and aren't coming in and trying to maximize density. They're actually bringing in a pretty good quality project. They've both been parts of the valley for a long time. Mr. Thuson, of course, has been doing development here probably since I was in junior high. So, so it's been an exciting group to work with. And I think that really kind of tells the story of what we want to do. You know, some of the things with Indian Creek, of course, will be worked out in the details as you work with agencies and things like that. But I think it's going to be a wonderful pathway amenity kind of on the edge of town that you normally don't get, you know, and especially with smaller developments where this is a very large development. And of course, getting rid of the industrial uses and armors, which is kind of interesting to watch. I was cleaning cattle pens there when I was 14. So, but so I think seeing this from 10, 15 years ago to in the next 5 years is going to be amazing to watch, and stand for any questions.
How deep is Indian Creek running through there?
I'm not walking into it. Right now, you know, it's pretty shallow. It's so kind of reeded up that it is probably 6 to 8 feet to top of
What I'm
bank.
thinking about is like in Boise, in the Boise River, where they have footbridges, you see the kids jumping off the bridge into the water all the time.
Oh, yeah, this would not be anywhere near safe enough to, and we'll have railings, you know, that's why we kind of kept this conceptual in nature. But this would be one where we see this being dredged and open up a little bit, just because dredging is an easier way to mitigate kind of past uses and get rid of some of the soils, the surface soils. So it may get a little deeper, but it's still gonna be a very shallow. Now where they've dived, you know, where I live off the Boise River in Boise, and where they dove in the past, before they kind of really ratcheted down, stopping them, was fairly shallow. I was actually always amazed, you know, that they would dive off the 20-foot bridges into that kind of a shallow nature. So, yeah, so we'll take proper precautions, and there's always the potential too. There's two ways to solve that: higher railings or deeper water at the bridges. That's the way but we're hoping to keep things pretty shallow and safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Christie. Daniel's not here today. Online, awesome.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. As stated, the action requested from you this evening is recommendation of approval or denial for the annexation and zoning of 126.27 acres west of Happy Valley to RS6, RMH, BC, and IL zoning. Also for a planned unit development and for the preliminary plat for Chisholm Estates subdivision in the RS6 area. So the property is currently under the jurisdiction of Canyon County within the city of Nampa's impact area. There are 4 different zonings proposed. So the industrial area on the east side, which I will go over here in just a minute, is surrounded by IL and RS6 on the north, excuse me, Canyon County property on the south, Canyon County and future RMH on the east, and on the west, Canyon County and the railroad. The multifamily, which is in the center, On the north is enclaved Canyon County residential property. On the south is an RS6 future subdivision, the Indian Creek Estates. And on the east is Canyon County, which is future RS6 zoning. And on the west is Canyon County future IL zoning. So in the center to the west side will be the single family. And to the north, it is RP, which is occupied by some small commercial businesses, and BC, which is vacant. To the south will be the future RS6 subdivision. To the east is Canyon County. To the west is Canyon County, which is future RMH within this development. And then there are two commercial zones, one on the southwest portion of this development, bordered by the railroad tracks and the Triple Crown Estates subdivision and future RS6 subdivision. And then on the northeast corner, which would be the southwest corner of Happy Valley and Amity, is bordered by BC on the north, which is vacant, the RS6 future subdivision that we're talking about tonight, Canyon County on the east, and the RS6 on the west and south. So the city's water and sewer systems are adequate to serve this property. The project will be required to construct utilities to and through the property at the time of development. The nearest fire station is 1.6 miles away, and the nearest police station is 3.2 miles away. The applicable regulations for annexation that you must find when making your decision tonight are listed in your staff report. The applicable regulations for zoning are listed in your staff report. And these are all of the zoning chapters that will be used in the review of this project going forward. There's also a list from chapter 26, and you always don't hear planned unit developments very often, but there is a list of design criteria in your staff report that you should use when reviewing this. It does meet that code. This is the zoning. So the RS6 portion is this yellow portion. It's 64.33 acres. The RMH portion is the purple one in the middle, and it's 15.86 acres. The BC zones are on each end. One is 3.9 acres, and one is 1.19 acres. And then the light industrial is on the east side, and it is 40.84 acres. So the traffic was actually broken down into 4 sections. I don't know if you had a chance to read your impact study. If you want me to go through each item, I can. I don't have to unless you have any specific questions. The first section of the traffic impact study, or the comments that came back from engineering, I should say, were broken down into 4 sections. The first was to be addressed by the developer. So that lists out the intersections that they will be required to develop. The second section is what will not be addressed by the developer, but may be impacted by background traffic conditions. The third one is what is listed out in the capital improvements plan to be done in the next few years. And the third one is then the standard list of items that we always request. So what would be required for right-of-way dedication, what would be required for frontage road improvements, the speed limits on those roads, and then the fact that there would be an on-site circulation system that would meet all of the city policies. So the correspondence that was received, we received 2 letters from the public, which he addressed in his presentation. We received standard comments from the building department, the parks department, the Nampa Forester, the engineering and GIS divisions, and fire and police. This does meet the comprehensive plan for community mixed use. The definition for that encourages commercial, industrial, high density, and medium density residential, which this project includes all of those things. It is a half a mile from Columbia High School. It is within walking distance, but there are some facilities that need to have some filled gaps. East Valley Middle School, is 1.25 miles away, and Park Ridge Elementary School is 1.25 miles away. So this is in regards, the preliminary plat is in regards to the RS6 portion of this property. with a PUD entitlement that will allow for smaller lots and for the zero lot line attached townhouse units, as long as the lot is large enough to support a livable structure. So even with these proposed smaller lots in the development, it is well within the allotted density required for the PUD Chapter 26 and for the RS6 zone. The smallest buildable lot is 3,949 square feet for an attached unit and 4,400 for a single-family unit. In the RMH zone, which is the larger Lot 1 to the east of that, the standard building lots in the RMH zone shall meet or exceed 6,000 square feet in area. This is going to be one lot that is not proposed to be subdivided. The concept for this lot proposes 186 dwelling units in 7 buildings with parking and amenities at a density of 18.78 dwelling units per acre. The open space and amenities will be reviewed for compliance with city code during their design review when they're ready to pull their building permits. There are no large platted lots that are adjacent to this development, therefore there's no compatibility issues. The RS6 lot width and depth, if the PUD is approved, then the 40-foot lots will be approved as well, and then will demonstrate the required lot width and depth to be in compliance with code. So landscape plan was submitted. The city forester has requested an alternate species of the river birch tree, so that will be required to be revised for the final plat submittal. A 6-foot vinyl privacy fence is proposed around the perimeter of the RS6 portion of the development. The open space provided excuse me, for the RS6 zoned portion is 12.67 acres or 19.7%. This will include the landscape buffer and amenities like a large gathering area in the middle of the neighborhood for a pool and a clubhouse, and the pathways along Happy Valley and Indian Creek. For PUD, they are required to have not less than 15% of the total gross area in common space, and it shall be distributed equitably throughout the project. So with that 19.7 and the pathways and the gathering area, it is compliant with code in that regard. So these are the conditions of approval as listed in your staff report. 2 pages of those for your review. If you'd like me to go over any of those, I certainly can, and any that you might consider adding this evening. And this is your potential motion. This is all 3 of them together, or I can break them out for you if you would like, and I will stand for any questions.
Christie, you said we got a police report, which I have a copy of, but it's all blank. Is that the best area in town where there's no crime?
It's blank. Oh, it's all 0. You are correct. Do you suppose that's because it's under the sheriff's office and not under Nampa PD?
But the surrounding area is under, that's usually what they take into consideration is the surrounding area.
Yes, you are correct. That's a question for Lieutenant Skoglund.
I'll make the call tomorrow.
Okay.
Any questions for Christie? Okay, we'll proceed to public testimony. I have some names on here, all for the proposal. And you can come and talk if you want, or you can just put you on the record by giving your name. Okay, we have Kevin Amar, and you said you'd like to speak? Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Kevin Amar. My address is 1580 West Cayuse Creek Drive in Meridian. I am the owner of Biltmore Company, and we are going to be the builder within this project. We have known Lance, or I've known Lance for many years. Mr. Thewison, I guess we're supposed to call him Mr. Thewison tonight. We're excited about this project. This is the type of community, and I say community intentionally. We really do try to find a community to build in, not just a subdivision. This really is that community that we're looking for. Within the residential portion, the RS6, there will be, it's a fully amenitized subdivision, meaning we'll build a full clubhouse with common area and kitchen facilities and gathering rooms and places that the residents that are living there can use. In addition to that, there'll be a pool, a pretty fair-sized pool that can be used within the community and other outdoor play areas. We want this to be an active community for the people that we build for. We currently are building in Nampa in a couple of locations in Summit Ridge in Nampa. Our homes generally go, and currently price-wise, 600 and up. In Summit Ridge, we're from 600,000 to well over $1 million. So this isn't, when I say community, we do look for places that people can live and enjoy living. We love the location and the additional access to the common area, the pathway along Indian Creek, and we're excited about building here. We also build multifamily. As we look at the multifamily, and I know that will come back through with another PUD and approval, but it will also have its fully amenitized package within that. So there will be another pool and a clubhouse and common areas and walking places. So as we build this, we expect to provide a home for many people and be able to provide something that we're proud of and that Nampa's proud of for years. So we appreciate your support tonight, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have Blaine, you're on here, which is good that you support it. Andrew Newell, don't wish to speak. Okay. Vicky McMinn, Coburn.
Hi, Vicki McMinn Coburn, 609 South Grays Lane, Nampa, Idaho. Chair and Commissioners, I was concerned about Grays Lane perhaps being punched through to give some access to this development, and I was only going to ask for a traffic light to be put in there if that were to happen. That's all.
Okay, Sandy Coburn.
Randy Coburn, I'm also at 609 South Grays Lane. We're almost directly across the street from some of this development. So we are both in favor of this project, and we think that it will be an improvement and a benefit not only to the neighborhood, but to Nampa as a whole. So we think it's a good project. And also, on their plan, it doesn't show Grays Lane going all the way through the property, even though there is room to do that. They may have to redesign the location of some of their plots, but I think that would be a better idea to have the exit at Grays Lane rather than halfway down the project have another exit onto Amity. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Lance Thusen, we have you as 4. I like it when applicants are for their projects.
Instead of against. Madam Chair and Commission, my name is Lance Thusen. Office is 455 South Kings Road, Nampa. So we obviously are in favor of this project. I appreciate the Coburns and their support. We don't plan on pushing Grays Lane down south. It'll be as it is. But right now, I bought the property about a year ago, January, and we've just been cleaning up the old meat plant, tearing the old buildings down. There's several of those buildings that are down in the flood plain, and if they were to be removed, we are removing a lot of them, but there's some of them that we're leaving there because I don't think we could get a permit where some of the floodplain. But we really want to clean that up. We're going to put a nice pond in there as well along the creek, so there'll be grass and some a lot of trees and really beautify that old eyesore that's been there for years.
Awesome.
I appreciate Kevin as well. I've known Kevin. We've done a lot of his projects, worked for him, and he's a great builder and will do a really nice job. I've seen some of the products that he's made. So certainly we're in favor of this project and appreciate your vote in favor. So I'd stand for any questions.
No, I think we're good. Thank you. Okay, Tara Hudson. And you don't wish to speak, but we've got you on the record as 4. Jerry Dickerson. Just on the record, okay. And then Castillo is the last name, but I can't understand the first name. Hugo, all right. And you do not wish to speak, but you're on the record 4. And Danita Martin.
Thank you for an opportunity to address the assembly. I will speak and probably take my full time, but my roots to this area go back to 1981, which was corn topping for the Kramick family in what would be the Indian Creek Estates. In 1992, I was a first-year public school teacher, and my husband and I bought our home at 227 South Grays Lane. This has been my community ever since, and I'm really pleased to hear that theme of community already being expressed. It was our community before Park Ridge and before Columbia High School. We loved the country setting and the view of the mountains, which, of course, that is no longer. In 1994 to 2001, we had 3 boys. 2001 brought the very first changes with the huge Meadows subdivision. At that time, we opposed development, but we did urge, and all of the city and the county and the irrigation district and the highway district came together with the developer to improve the road, the bridge, bring in the sewer, and those kinds of things. So we learned that changes come, and with that, infrastructure benefits can come. So then we kind of waited. And the overpass was wonderful. The dog park is tremendous. Good use of the land. And I think I've been really encouraged by what we've heard going on with Indian Creek. We've waited for a long time to see what would happen with Armour. We used to see the skins and smell, and we already appreciate just the clearing of the land right there at Grays Lane to the Chevron. So we do support the entire Chisholm development. But in return, we ask all parties to see the needs of the community and to meet them. First is the working class with the traffic flow, particularly the end of Grays Lane onto Amity and onto Victory at this point is already challenging. Already challenging. So we've added some subdivisions down below the McMinns, and there have been some kind of other types of projects being in the wind at the end of Grays Lane and Amity, and that is just, that's deep concern. The second is for the children and families. I'm glad to see some sidewalk and gutter, but I would like to see the city and the county, whoever else, work through so that that curb and gutter continues to access the dog park and for kids to go to the high school. And the third area would be, I don't know what the business stuff is envisioned, but another childcare center would also be a helpful thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Pretty right on with your 3 minutes there. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to testify for the proposal? Against? Undecided? Okay. Anybody have any questions for the applicant other than traffic questions? I think Daniel needs to address the Grays Lane traffic, what we're going to be having going on there, if you would, please.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So as part of the traffic study, they did look at the intersection of Grays Lane and Happy Valley, or Grays Lane and Amity, similar to the findings that happened with the last development adjacent there. It operates at a level of service that is acceptable to the city. The traffic study does call for an eastbound left turn lane as a background traffic condition. Because of the various turn lanes and that it are warranted under the traffic study, one of the conditions is that they place a center turn lane throughout Amity, all the way from Meehan, all the way to the roundabout, basically, or just before that. And so that will help address those background traffic issues. And there were no other Amity and Grays Lane things found to be warranted with the traffic there that's current or that will be generated by this development.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Since we got Daniel on the line, and this is more of a general question, but I hear this all the time, acceptable to the city. That phrase I hear quite a bit. And what does that mean? Because I think it might mean different to the city as it does to the people who live in the city and have to deal with the traffic all the time, which we all do. So what does that standard mean, acceptable to the city? Because this will generate a lot of traffic, not just vehicular traffic, but it's going to generate some foot traffic too with Columbia. So I'm thinking sidewalks and crosswalks and whatever else on Amity.
So the city has established what our acceptable level of service is for intersections. That was done when we implemented our impact fees a number of years ago. As we look at that, there is a set of data that grades intersections basically. And so the level of service that was adopted by the city is a level of service D. And that's not necessarily a D grade as in something you would see in, A, B, C, D, E, F, school grade. It's based on the number of vehicles, the delay for vehicles and that. And so that's what the city has established as our acceptable level of service. And so when we do these traffic impact studies, we are looking at what the impacts are, and those impacts that are tip these intersections over that threshold, those are the things that the developments are required to mitigate. And so that's how we determine what when I say acceptable to the city, that has been adopted by City Council. It also plays into how we fund our traffic impact fees and what we're able to do there. And so all of those things kind of play into how we fund our transportation improvements that we do.
Okay, and then also, I haven't heard anything about crosswalks from this development across to Columbia. And there will be many students it's within short walking distance.
So there are existing crosswalks, I believe, there at the intersection of Amity and Happy Valley at the roundabout there. We would not, with the volume of traffic there, with that being the case that there are those there, and where they will be installing sidewalk all along that south side, that would be the access point across to get up to Skyview. We would not likely recommend additional crosswalks there where they will have continuous sidewalks through to the intersection there.
But there's no continuous sidewalks on the north side of Amity along to the entrance at Columbia, correct? And there won't be.
Correct, because we do not have right of way to be able to do that at this time, nor is the per city code, nor is it this developer's responsibility to do that. If that's something that the council wanted to look at funding the purchase of the right-of-way and the installation of that, that's certainly something that the city could undertake if there were funding to do so.
Yeah, understood. Okay,
Thank you, Daniel.
thank you.
I would entertain a motion.
It's in the roundabout. There's crosswalks there in that roundabout.
Okay.
So,
Jeff, we
yeah, and that's
can't
why I
be
was asking that.
Communicating with the audience at this time.
That was my biggest concern is the crosswalk, just the
Right.
amount of foot traffic it's gonna generate there. I appreciate, thank you, Daniel, I appreciate the comments.
I'd entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, public hearing has been moved to close. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Madam Chair, if there's no discussion, I'll move to recommend approval of the annexation and zoning of 126.27 acres south of Amity Road and west of Happy Valley Road to RS6, RMH, BC, and IL zoning districts. Plan unit development and preliminary plat for Chisholm Estate subdivision. For Triple Crown Investments, LLC, Lance Stuson, representing Thornton Group, LLC, and with all conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll kind of hold off for a minute, let these people leave.
My neighborhood is changing. So my neighborhood is changing.
You should have bought some land last year.
That all gets done over there.
I think it would be nice, yeah.
Well, I thought they were all here for 3.
Are you involved with this project, or you just work for them?
Okay, public hearing item number 3, comprehensive plan map amendment.
Madam Chair, Doug Critchfield, Principal Planner. I know that typically the applicant comes to the podium, in this case, the city being the applicant. I would come to the podium, but I have everything around me, and if, with your permission.
We'll forgive
if
you
I
this
could-
time.
Okay. All right. So this evening, we're bringing before you 3 items. There's a comprehensive plan map amendment. And the map amendment is to do several things, to change some of the land use designations, and to add new designations to an area of impact, which is the second item, in that there's a proposal to increase the area of impact. And then the third item would be to change the language in Chapter 5 of the comprehensive plan to those items that are affected by these changes. So if, with your permission, I just wanted to acknowledge that we have this evening Brianna Sun, who worked with me this last year on this project. We also have in the audience Steve Foltz from Canyon County. He's the planning director, and Elizabeth Allen, who is a planner 3, who just took over the future planning. And Steve will be testifying a little bit later this evening. Also wanted to mention that there was quite a bit of interaction on this project over the last year. We've met many, many people from the community, and it's been a pleasure and a joy to meet these individuals. Lots of different opinions out there about how this should proceed, all of which we are grateful for, and the community participation in this. The purpose of these amendments this evening is to really do 3 things. Is to plan for the orderly growth of the city in the future, and to promote density within the city limits, and to preserve agricultural land within the county. The comprehensive plan provides for this type of conservation work in Chapter 5. In that we will continue to work with Canyon County to develop strategies to conserve agricultural land, as well as in the objectives of Chapter 5, which address the conservation of open space, prioritizing infill development, to implement proposed growth management modifications, and to increase public participation in this process. So the factors that are leading to this action or this proposal this evening have to do with the amount of growth that we've had really in the last, significantly in the last 2 years, but really over the last 10, 15 years. We're seeing a lot of development going on in the west, south, and north of Nampa. There's a lot of industrial interest in the area. And also this year, funds have become available to start the Highway 16 project and the connection between Highway 2026 and Interstate 84. This is 7 to 10 years ahead of schedule, and it caught us off guard. And so we are in the process of gaining a consultant to help us plan that specific corridor, but that has required us to take a look at where we are with our land uses in that area. Real estate prices, traffic, the expansion of I-84 to the 29 interchange. The 2026 corridor is under review for expansion to 5 lanes. Star is growing south of the Boise River. Caldwell and Meridian are also building projects up to the borders of Nampa's area of city impact. And there's been a recent demand for large lot subdivision development in unincorporated areas of the county on the fringe of the current Nampa area of city of impact. And this has been concerning to us as well. So this type of planning allows for us to plan for appropriate growth and appropriate expansion of the city and to discourage leapfrog development out in the county. In the census, the population state of Idaho is about 1,840,000. Canyon County is 231,105. This is for the 2020 census. And Nampa is at 100,200 people. That number is, the population in Nampa is growing about 2.2% annually, and that's over the last 10 years. The projected population is 150,000 in 2040. So the planning process for this started back in March. We had a survey that we put out about growth, and we received 893 responses. And the emphasis really was to encourage mixed-use development in the denser parts of the city and to preserve agricultural land where we could. So that was going right along with the comprehensive plan. In August, we met with Canyon County and Meridian, Kuna, Caldwell, Middleton, and we're talking about our proposal to extend the area of impact. We had no objections at that time, and they were supportive of the idea. In September, we sent out 1,300 notices to the residents who live outside of the area of impact, mostly in South Nampa, and convened a meeting at Lake Ridge Elementary School. We had 59 attendees and 20 letters or emails from that mailer. The mailer included the opportunity to either respond back to us through email. We had a QR code that people could use to find out information about the project, and we also advertised the meeting for that. In September 23rd, we had a joint workshop with the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council about growth trends and the proposed changes, and we received feedback from that. And then in November, we mailed letters to the property owners along the 2026 corridor because of the changes coming from Star and from the expansion of that highway. We wanted to gain some feedback in that area as we were proposing some changes. We had quite a bit of correspondence, and we had some meetings with Canyon County Planning regarding the comprehensive plan, area of city impact. That occurred through 21 and 22. And we had general agreement about the proposed boundary. There was some feedback about the county's comprehensive plan and some of the areas that they're looking to preserve in South Nampa. And so we had quite a bit of discussion. Steve will probably be addressing some of that in his remarks this evening. We then proceeded to compile all this information and provide these proposed changes for you. We did take careful consideration about the respondents that we received from the property owners in South Nampa and determining where these impact boundaries could be along with the land use designations. So first off, let's discuss the area of city impact. So I think it's important, particularly for the audience this evening, to understand what the difference is between what an area of city of area impact is and what it is not. What it is that it's a planning tool, and it's required by state code for all municipalities, and it attempts to ensure that the efforts are made to grow in an orderly fashion while still maintaining the values of the community at large. It helps us protect the property rights of the owners, and I'll discuss that in a little bit, what that means, and encourages us to grow in a responsible manner. It encourages urban development within Nampa and preservation of ag land within the county. And what it is not, and this is where there's a lot of confusion about this as we've communicated with individuals. So it is not annexation into the city of Nampa. The properties that are in the area of impact that are not in city limits are in Canyon County, and they will stay in Canyon County until such time that the property owner has the opportunity to annex into the city if they so desire. That would be initiated by the property owner, and they would have to be adjacent to the city of Nampa. They cannot do that without being adjacent. That's, again, in state code. It is not a zoning map. The overlays and the land use settings that are used in the comprehensive plan, excuse me, are planning tools. They help the engineering department, the fire department, police department decide and plan master plans for what types of services are going to be needed in the future, long future. These land use settings are suggestions about what these areas could look like. They have more import as the city grows into these land use setting areas because the zoning that is applied to any parcel that's annexed in has to be in conformance with the description of that land use setting. The good news is that for these are flexible, and if a development wants to come in that's not in conformance with the land use setting, then there's some work to take place that we have to take a look at compatibility and other factors before we would make a recommendation. And then that individuals can bring that to a public hearing to change that land use setting. Land use settings can also be stretched over adjacent land use settings, so there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how these are used. So if you look at our zoning map on the left, you can see that Nampa has developed out largely central and to the west. The north is starting to develop out. The east along the 84, north of 84, is developing out into a city area. But to the south, to the east, and to the south of I-84, most of that property was developed in the county as subdivisions, and it's very difficult to find any path of annexation. There are a couple of routes, but for the most part, that's largely being blocked by a lot of the county development. And once a subdivision goes in the county, most of the subdivision residents don't want to annex into the city of Nampa for taxes and other reasons. Same issue kind of to the south, similar issues. We've got a lot of subdivisions in the south, but there, again, in these areas, there are pathways to annexation. If you look at that compared to the future land use map, we have placed a land use designation over the entire area within the area of impact. And again, these become planning areas. They're not zones. They're just planning areas. And that's an important distinction to make. So one might ask, okay, well, what is orderly growth? And we talked a little bit about this already. Another important factor is that growth should occur on transportation corridors, and that improvements should be made with those with that growth. Utilities should be provided to the lots within the subdivision, and that there's always a public process that's conducted to receive those entitlements. Disorderly growth is growth that occurs in scattered and leapfrog-type subdivisions in the county without utilities, say septic and well. And so that can eat up ag land, or it can create problems with farming ag land if there are subdivisions that are adjacent to it in these leapfrog types of developments. The land uses that are incompatible is disorderly growth. That's something that we look to ensure when we go through the annexation process. And then the lack of services near residential development. To some degree, that is a disorderly growth because it requires people to travel long distances to get to grocery stores and other services. So the state law that's associated with expanding the area of impact is in state code. This is in your staff report. And it just requires that several factors be considered when looking at the area of impact, including the trade area, geographic factors, and areas that can be reasonably expected to be annexed to the city in the future. In terms of the details, currently our area of impact goes from the Boise River down to Lakeshore Drive, and then from Midway to McDermott. Nampa has 22,000 acres roughly within city limits, and the current area of impact has 45,000 acres. Now, the proposed change adds another 9,600 acres to the current area of impact. It's about a 21% increase to 54,600 acres. So the question is, well, why do you want to expand the area of impact if you already have half of your area that's not in city limits? And the answer to that is that we're trying to address the issue of subdivisions that want to come into the county. And the city has taken a strong position that we would oppose those types of developments. The only developments that really are annexed into the city that have services that can be provided immediately or in the near future are the types of developments that we would support in the area of impact. Outside of the area of impact, the county can give comment, but the county doesn't have as much weight in our comments to the proposal that may come to the county. And we feel it's important that we, again, contribute to the orderly growth of the city and to avoid this leapfrog type of development. And so these areas would allow us to do that. We've had several negotiations with the city of Caldwell over the years about the area to the west, in that the city limits go to Midway. We're proposing that we finish that area. The Caldwell already has an area of impact to Lone Star Road, and they've already designated this area as a low-density area. So we're proposing that that be entered into the area of city impact so it's more contiguous. And also we have a new sports park off of Midway, and we'd like to propose that that area be planned and it grows appropriately instead of in a sprawl type of condition. To the south, originally we had received several requests to take a look at the entire south area down to the Mora Canal. We had taken several tours of the area. Bree and I spent some time traveling the roads down there. After talking with the residents in this area, we're proposing that we scale that way back to Missouri Avenue to the south and to Deer Flat Road south of Lakeshore Drive, and then up to the Lake Lowell area. There's federal lands that are not would not fall within the area of city impact. Those are federal. The benefit of this is that the AOI can be more limited and strategic, and it also helps the county work with their transfer of development right program that they're proposing for these intensive ag areas that they've specified in their comprehensive plan. And it would keep the area of impact out of those intensive agricultural areas. So in terms of taking a look at the future land use map, so there were several small revisions made to this map since the council adopted this in March of 2020. Again, with all these expansion issues coming up, it was important for us to review this and be more detailed about how we were going to propose these future land uses in these areas. Now, some of the considerations for future land uses are is that we're desired to be compatible with our neighbors, and I'll show you in a little bit what we're talking about as far as that's concerned. We're also interested in ensuring that the transportation corridors were being utilized appropriately, and that we had the opportunity to bring commercial into these large areas where over the years we've developed parts of southwest Nampa that's been purely residential subdivisions with very little commercial. And it's clogged up our roadways with a lot of traffic on these intersections. And so our proposal is to allow for some commercial uses in these areas that are closer to the neighbors. And so we'll talk to you a little bit about what that means. That's also consistent with what we heard in the survey that we put out. So we're also starting to do a little bit more detailed planning in some of these areas. This is an example that Meridian is doing on what they're calling a 4 square mile concept plan. This is just north of Ustick and west of Canada Road, or east of Canada Road. And we met with Meridian about this and gave some feedback. And what we're trying to do is take something like this that Meridian is proposing, as well as Star's impact area, which is to the northeast, and Caldwell's impact area to the west. And we're trying our attempt is to line up those uses so that they're compatible with each other. We're not proposing something that would be out of compatibility. So this was part of the methodology that we used when we were proposing these land uses for planning purposes. We also received a lot of feedback from the other agencies as well as internally about what these might be. So if we take a look at these areas, the areas that are colored here are areas that we're proposing to make changes to the current future land use map. And so I'll just talk a little bit about this, and then I'll show you what the end result is in each of the areas of the city. So in North Nampa, we're getting development pressure with the opening of Ridgeview and Owyhee High Schools. Again, the 2026 corridor STAR is moving towards us with their development. They've got some sewer lines they've crossed the river with, and they're proposing to move their downtown south of the river. And Meridian is also developing 2026 into a 5-lane road, ACHD is through with Meridian down Chinden in our direction. So we're proposing some changes that would complement that. And this would be the end result is that we're looking to bring very low density along the river. There's mostly ag use out there. Syngenta has a seed facility there. So the commercial in the red is the Syngenta properties. And then, as we had proposed previously, low-density residential, and then some opportunities for some community mixed use. This should probably largely be an agriculture focus along this corridor, but then also things that would service the residential mixed use in this area. In North Nampa, north of Ustick Road, with the 16 being constructed this year, we are proposing quite a few changes to this area. This is going to grow rather quickly, and so and there's going to be a lot of development interest along this corridor and along Ustick. So we're making some changes to this area, mostly to complement what Meridian is doing with some high-density residential, some industrial up near where there's a big propane facility there, and so we are proposing industrial along that edge, and some residential mixed use. On the interior along 11th and Franklin, along those corridors. And then on East Nampa, south of I-84, we're working on getting a connection to the I-16 from the south, Highway 16 from the south, crossing I-84. If that goes in, this area is going to change pretty drastically along Robinson Road, and so we're proposing some changes that would allow for some low-density residential in the already established county subdivisions, some medium-density residential that's there, but then some residential mixed use to bring in commercial uses into this area as well, so that it allows for those services to go into that area. In southeast Nampa, this is north of the current AOI along Greenhurst Road to the north, and then Lakeshore Drive to the south. This whole area is a transitional area. This is the pathway to annexation in this area. So we feel it's important that have, again, mixed use opportunities for commercial use in this area to reduce the amount of drive time that's required. Okay, in South Nampa, this is an area of great interest with a lot of people who live in this area. And you'll hear probably tonight in public testimony some interest in not having this at all or doing some revisions to it. And we're open to that type of feedback, and we have been throughout this process. So what we're proposing is low-density residential south of south to Deer Flat Road, and then residential mixed use. And then in the residential mixed use, our minimum density, we don't really have a minimum density in that zone. We're proposing one this evening, a little bit later on. But what we're proposing is that the areas that are closest to the agricultural areas, that those be a lower density mixed use residential with ag-related commercial as a focus of this area, and looking to try and buffer between the residential mixed use and the agricultural land that's down there. Around Lake Lowell, similar issues. We're looking to create very low density around Lake Lowell to preserve some of the habitat areas in those areas and the farmland that's up in that area. And low density residential really between Highway 45 and the lake, and then some residential mixed use in between. Commercial along I-45 or Highway 45 extending southward. We're proposing that 45, as the area develops, will probably become more commercial interest in that area. And then finally to the west, we're looking at low-density residential to match what Caldwell is doing, and then some residential mixed use around the park, and medium density to the north, and very low density down towards Lake Lowell. In the comprehensive plan, these changes are in the staff report. This is just a brief of the changes that are proposed. I'd be glad to review any of these with you, but I just want to point out a few of these. These policies, we're looking to work more with the county on their new comprehensive plan. They've been good partners, and we're interested in working with them on requiring buffers between ag land and residential development, and with their transfer of development rights program. We're providing some more clarity in the code on density and open space definitions, and also about the location of commercial uses in the existing medium density residential land use settings. We also have changed the agricultural residential land use to very low density residential. It has the same limitations, 5-acre lot minimums, and it's really designed for agricultural areas within the city limits. And then we're looking to add clarity to the residential mixed use designation. We're looking to make a minimum density of RS5, which would allow up to a 12,000 square foot lot. And this is in the residential mixed use designation. We had indicated RS4, but after conversing with staff, we feel that a higher density or lower density would be appropriate with a RS 8.5. And then we have other sections that discuss the compatibility with the intensive agricultural, and where we could locate, or that we need to start the process of determining where receiving areas would be for the transfer of development rights for the county, and that's an important discussion to have going forward. We did receive a lot of correspondence on this. Again, this is stated in your staff report. We wanted to emphasize that there was a lot of interest in keeping this ag land to the south, and that the property in the AOI, it does increase in land value, but there was, again, general interest and concerns about things having to do with growth, including traffic. Some individuals had indicated that it's hard for them to farm with urban land uses nearby. For example, an individual has told me that planes that will spray pesticides and so forth will not operate near urban areas, and for a myriad of reasons. But so their ability to farm is limited when it's near urban areas. So we're concerned about that. There's a desire to increase density in the city and not in farming areas. There's concern about taxes, preserving the canal system, lawless behavior on the city fringe and the ag areas, which has increased. There's a lot of interest in land and developing their land for retirement, so we had to take that into consideration. And then there are some individuals that were in favor of the changes that we're proposing. And then there's other comments that, again, that are stated in your staff report that were sent to you. The public agencies did give us some feedback. The engineering division basically said that they're working on many master plans, and that some of these will be completed this year, and that this is a very important process to that master planning process. The findings and conclusions of law, it's not typically what you see in your staff report. These are based off the state code 676526 and 676508. So if you have any questions about those conclusions of law and findings, please let me know. And then I have motions for you this evening, and I'd be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Okay, we have a list. All right. Let's pick a page to start. Okay, I appreciate the printing. I can read a lot of names. Beverly Emmert. Give us your name and address for the record.
Okay. My name is Beverly Emmert. My address is 7180 Beaumont Road, Nampa. My husband Chris and I and our sons farm 800 acres south of Nampa, 400 of which we own. Our family's been farming some of this ground for over 100 years. We grow seed crops, sweet corn, carrots, onions, beans. We also grow wheat, mint, hay. We have registered Black Angus cattle. We wrote a letter and sent it to you guys September 29, 2021, and I believe it's included in your packet. We are against this proposal. While we do see some benefits, we do not support the expansion of the City of Nampa area of impact or the designation of this agricultural land as low-density residential, residential mixed use, or commercial use. At the very least, it needs to be very low residential. This is ag land. I don't know if you've driven out there to look at it, but it is ag land. Increased population on and near agricultural land has detrimental effects on farmers, and we have experienced this really badly in the last few years. We're concerned over being denied use of spray planes because of complaints of neighbors. There's been increased traffic, jeopardizing our safety, speeding, running stop signs, illegal passing, failing to yield to wide machinery, future plans of the Nampa Highway District to turn our rural farm road into an expressway to disperse congestion from other areas and bring it to the more open areas like ours. And we've also experienced increased trespassing, dumping of trash and old furniture on our property, unauthorized ATVs on our farm lanes, dusting our crops during pollination and inhibiting our bees, things like that. Loss of cooperation of new neighbors, not allowing us isolation for our seed crops, allowing their dogs to run through our fields and dig up seeds and plants, shooting firearms towards our open fields and pinging our tractors. Loss of security, increase of theft like metal, irrigation, motorcycles, etc. We need to lock up everything, tractor sheds, all of it. So you see the presence of even one more house, more people, even outside of that half-mile buffer zone that you guys are proposing for ag land, threatens the success of our ag operations. We can't survive amidst this congestion in our area. We need wide open spaces to support sound farming practices and rural roads that allow for slow-moving and wide vehicles in order for our farms to operate successfully. Please keep the boundaries where they are. Do not expand them out. I do see some benefits of that, but we believe agricultural land needs to stay agriculture. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a question for you, please.
Yes.
This is a family operation you have now?
Yes, it is.
And how many family members do you have coming up the road? So
We
explain
have
just-
2 sons.
2 sons?
Mhm.
And they'll take over your operation and they're not
That's
planning on
correct.
going
They
into
will
something
inherit my husband and
else?
I's
Do they want to
ground.
do this?
Yes, they do.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
And
Thank
we-
you.
And we have Chris, you're on the record as against. Tim Avery?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you. Excuse me, my voice is a little bit harsh.
Name and address for the record.
Name and address, Tim Avery. My address is 8355 Star Pass Ridge Road, Nampa. I do want to commend Mr. Critchfield for both his presentation and the comprehensive work that he and his staff have done in an attempt to do this, put this plan forward. It's tedious, I know. And in reviewing the 230-some page packet that became a part of this evening's package for the commissioners, I can appreciate some of that work. Not to belabor or go over what Doug talked about in his presentation, but I do want to touch base on the process for notification that took place here. And my comments, so that you'll know, is primarily focused on the southern portion of this plan. That September 1 notice went out to 1,300 landowners, that's correct. And then there was that meeting on the 16th of September. The notice directed people to look to the Planning Commission's website to both review what was contained in this plan proposal and also to stay informed of changes. There was a link provided to sign up for additional changes and information. Only 59 people signed up officially for that. And I'm going to assert that part of that reason is that at the time of that meeting and up to the moment we left to come to this meeting tonight, the plan shows this map, which has no change to the ag zone in it whatsoever on the website. So people are looking at this and saying, no harm, no foul, no change. That is not true, as we have seen in the presentation. And for the 59 people that did receive a modification of that, it, in fact, is no longer a current representation of what we've seen tonight on the maps. This thing's been tweaked many, many times. And in going through the 230-some pages that you all received, I think I found 6 different representations of the proposed change to the portion of land that lays over the current ag area. One of the things that I think is important for everyone to understand is it's easy to say that this is just a forecast plan. It's more than that. It's a negotiation with the county. It's a negotiation for a mutual understanding with the county. And when you begin to change ag land designations to this low density, which in all of the paperwork it says 1 acre, I think the staff said 5 acres here about 10 minutes ago. That is a precursor to what the county is going to see from a zoning standpoint in the future. That will result in a lot of that ag land being approved for the very development that they say they don't want to happen outside of the contiguous space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lois Troyer, you wish not to speak?
Yeah, I'm not
If you want to speak, you have to come up to the mic and give us your name and address for the record.
I'm not against or for it. I just wanted to make sure that our land wasn't included in that. I talked to Doug, so I was just coming to verify it was removed from the map.
Can you give us your name and address for the record?
It's Lois Troyer, and I'm at 11001 Coyote Cove. And did you get that removed? That's all I was coming for.
Larry Christensen.
Hi, my name's Larry Christensen, and I live at 6265 South Power Line Road, Nampa. We also are farmers, and my son and my brother and I farm, and we farm land near where I just said my house is, on the corner of South Power Line and Beaumont Roads. We also farm land out on Missouri Avenue, which is adjacent or included in this area of impact change, as well as land over on Cuna Road, which is a little bit east of Southside Boulevard. I also am opposed to the impact change for the following reasons. I hope everybody in this room understands what a treasure we have. The seed growing areas in this area are the best in the world. And I'm talking alfalfa seed, corn, beans, carrot seed, and I just don't know how you can replace this. You have companies such as Crookham's in Caldwell, Seneca and Seminis here in Nampa, SPS Seeds out of Fruitland, HM Close here in Nampa. These companies need land to produce these seed on, and it's valuable. And when these growth of subdivisions and more housing come in, as some have already said, we have to spray chemicals on these crops to keep the bugs out. It's really tough to use airplanes and also even land sprayers, ground rigs, because of the smell. You know, it's just, people complain about that when there's very many around. The other thing would be just increase in difficulty of getting large farm equipment down the roads with traffic. Okay, so I guess just in summary, a couple of my own opinions. Just because there is demand for more housing, it doesn't mean that we have to provide it. How does it make our community better by growing and expanding? Another one is in regards to this low density growth. In my personal opinion and what I've seen, it doesn't work very well. Most people that get 4 or 5 acres can't take care of it. They find that, oh, we want to have a pasture with a cow. And what we end up finding is we got a land full of weeds because it doesn't work very well, in my opinion. So for these reasons, I oppose this. Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, Roy Sizer, excuse me. And you do not want to speak, but you're on the record. And then Lorraine also. You want to speak, Lorraine? Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners and Chair. My name is Lorraine Sizer, reside at 12418 Rivendell Court, out near Lake Lowell. And for everyone that has spoken so far in stating that they do not want this change in the area of impact, for all of these people that just said that, please take those comments into consideration. I know everybody wants growth, but the other people have made the comment that we can't replace what isn't there. And I know that I didn't speak quite as eloquently as they did, but give it some thought. You've already made some changes to the other subdivisions.
Thank you. Claudia Frint.
Good evening, Claudia Frent, 12359 Rivendell Court. So we're a little bit of a unique neighborhood because we are all 18 homes on 2-acre lots. So we're a little bit of a mix. So we all have the opportunity to have some planter boxes, some vegetables if we want, gardens, and then we're able to have animals. And I have mixed feelings on the impact area and the movement just because of the location we are. We're between Roosevelt and Lake Lowell, right off of Midway. My first thing would be is I would never want to be in the city personally. We are being hurt by property taxes already, and coming into the city, that would just smash us. And a lot of people would find themselves in worse positions than they are. Also, my concerns, and I guess maybe I didn't understand all of it, is I saw that Roosevelt and Midway, where that park was put in, I may be mistaken, but that is deemed to be multifamily homes as well, and I would have concerns about that. Am I wrong in that, or am I right? Is that multifamily homes?
It was residential mixed use.
Mixed use. Does that mean it could be townhomes, apartments, or does that just mean residential?
It's going to, residential mixed use can be a mixture of housing types. So duplexes, townhouses.
So I would have a concern about that. I would say no to that, especially with allowing Lone Star Ranch to go in, which is all 1 acre lots. So I'd say if you're going to let an area develop in a direction, and you're going to allow like 2 acre homes, 1 acre homes, 3 acre homes, and property values, and people put in nice homes and they want to see their values stay that way, I would not want to see mixed use residential in my area. And then I would also echo all the farmers. If they have, I don't know how many acres out in farmland, I would say do not approve low-density homes around them, because it's true. There's farmland behind me, and I've never opposed the farmer spraying his crops, but I could see the more people there, it does become a danger to the people moving closer, and it becomes a nuisance to the farmers trying to farm. And the last thing we want to do is get rid of our farmland and our farmers. We want to kind of keep that here. So I would echo their sentiments as well. And I'd probably say no to the impact area. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Phillips, and you do not wish to speak?
Can I speak?
You can, if you change your mind, certainly.
Thank you. My name is Frank Phillips, 12080 Rivendell Court. Claudia is one of my neighbors, and so are the Sizers. I'm opposed to this only because I was a transplant from the state of Colorado and a farmer. I grew up that way. Military put me in California. I moved into a small town that had about 12,000 people in it. I watched the entire town cover up with houses while I was there. It went from 12,000 people to 66,000. All the farms are gone. All the orchards are gone, and you can't get them back. I'm just now getting to know the farmers in the neighborhood I live in, and I just hate to see them get forced out because of the housing. I understand some of them want to retire, they want to sell out, that's their thing, but the farmers that don't want to be shouldn't be forced out. I watched an entire town do that. So I oppose the way it's going to multi-use from Roosevelt to, I believe it's almost Orchard. I'm in the low density right now, and I don't want to be annexed by the city. So, thank you.
Lillian Bowen.
My husband, I can either take his 3 minutes too, he's on the next page.
Okay, if you want.
6 minutes?
You yield your time to your wife? Okay.
Shaking his head no.
I'm Lillian Bowen, and my husband, Mark Bowen, and we live at 8500 Elkhorn Lane in Nampa, Idaho. We're opposed to the extension of Nampa area of impact south to Missouri Avenue at this time. When we received notice of this hearing, we had to really dig to find information because we weren't given any of the other notices. And until the staff report was put out on Thursday is when I could actually look at some information. So, like they said, there was 1,350 property owners noticed for the first meeting. The city, or the city planners, they weren't prepared to share new boundaries with these people that came to the meeting. It was not in the letter. It was not shown at the meeting. But in August, they had some preliminary maps that they shared with the city and the county. The information gathered from your summary of comments from the meetings of the meeting of September 16th with the owners showed an overwhelming opposition to the expansion of the AOI. Now, we're at this public hearing to presumably vote on an AOI extension that no one knew was about to happen. There was no timeline given to these people. We understand that there were only 150 notices sent out for this public hearing. Not knowing who these were sent to, we asked around and didn't find anyone who received the first one. They didn't receive the second one. And we're in the South Quadrant, the biggest expansion area. We also canvassed our neighbor property owners and showed them that what they received on September 16th, and then the people didn't receive it. And for tonight's public, so the ones that received it on the 16th, they didn't receive it for this public hearing. And the farmer that farms 60% of the area of impact expansion wasn't even given a notice. Extension of the AOA to the south at this time is not necessary or warranted. There are thousands of acres of undeveloped land within your current AOA boundary, south and east. Develop that land first before taking away more viable land, farmland to the south. Where a well-established canal system provides for those farmers. The New York Canal crosses this expanded AOI. The city of Nampa is getting the cart before the horse. We could not locate a master plan for development of utility services south of Nampa. Nampa's own engineering division placed in your packet the current southern portion of your existing AOI south cannot be served with sewer. You cannot service anybody past Locust Lane. There are subdivisions currently being developed in your existing AOI south with private community wastewater treatment facilities. Are these really going to be managed by HOAs? Nampa, slow down. Let the engineering division you have develop a reasonable master plan before you open any more land to developers. Don't let the developers design your infrastructure. Stop, study, plan before you further grow, and then we might be interested. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, people, this is a public hearing. I know you guys want to express how you feel, but we can't have that. We're recording this meeting, and we have to keep the gallery quiet except for who is speaking, please. Okay, Phil, and I really don't want to butcher your last name, so I'll let you tell it when you get up here.
My name's Phil Leszewski. I reside at 8219 Highway 45. It's in regard to south of Nampa, outside of the city. I live right across the highway from Elkhorn Lane. My family and I moved there in 2016. It was just me and my wife at the time. Since then, we have 2 kids, and we love where we live. Our house has been there since the early 40s, and we're surrounded by farmland. That was the reason we moved there. I had other plans tonight. I didn't even know about this. I never got a letter. I had other plans tonight. I value my time just like all of you do. But I understand this isn't a zoning map, but I'm here to express my concern about any plans turning all the land that's farmland around my house to commercial or residential, really. But I am right on the highway in the strip that is in the plan to turn commercial. And that's unacceptable. That's not why I moved here. And I'd like to preserve all the farmland around us. The farmers we have great experiences with. I'm never upset about the spray. We just realize that's part of life, living out in rural area. So that's really my concern. And it seems to be echoed specifically with the south of the city plan. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Miriam Casper, I can't say it, Miriam. Miriam, do you want to speak? Okay, how do you pronounce your last name? Kasperzak. Okay, I apologize. And then we have Henry, and you don't want to speak either? I'll go ahead and speak. Okay, come on up.
My name is Henry Kasperzak. I live at Highway 45, 8213. Going on 9 years now, moved our family out there in the country. We actually have the 2 acres and we purchased the additional 2 acres closer to the highway, right next to us. Really love where we live. Love that it's out in the country. Thinking back, I grew up here. Boy, you know, when I was a kid, a lot more country, a lot more farmland. And I just really hate to see it go away. And once it goes away, it goes away. I mean, we're getting closer and closer to the Snake River. It may seem like a lot of farmland, but boy, it really, you know, like I said, once it goes away, and that's a major concern for me. And really for the community too. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Kindlet? Kindelt? And you don't wish to speak? Okay. And Mark Kindelt, you don't want to speak either? Pretty much been said. I agree with what they say. Okay. Royce Post. And you don't want to speak? And then Jolynn Post? Okay, we got you on the record as against. Okay, then I have some undecided people. Charlie Hoff?
Good evening. My name's Charlie Hoff, 1840 North Lakes Place, Meridian. I had some comments regarding a parcel on the northwest corner of 11th Avenue North and Highway 2026. We were hoping to talk about leaving it as mixed or community mixed use, but I think I saw on a slide of Doug's, you guys already had that. So overall, we're in favor of the proposed changes and think it looks like a pretty good plan. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Steve Foltz?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. Steve Foltz, 2723 East Maryland Avenue, Nampa, Idaho. And I'm here actually as the Development Services Director for Canyon County. Thank you again for this opportunity. I want to first off acknowledge and thank the Nampa Planning Department. They have been very involved with us, and Doug and Rodney and their team has worked closely with us as we're going through a comprehensive plan update ourselves and trying to address a number of different issues as we're going through that. As a side note, we are anticipating adoption of that plan in May of this year. So in just a few months, we're excited about that opportunity. What we've been somewhat commissioned to do, as you might imagine, as a county planning organization, is to look at how do we look at preserving agricultural land and concerns about urban sprawl, the leapfrogging that Doug mentioned throughout the unincorporated area. Development in the area with insufficient infrastructure that's been discussed as well, and the overall impact within the intense agricultural area where we have feedlots and seed production and concerns on cross-pollination, a number of things like that. So again, it's been very, very helpful for us to have the City of Nampa's planning department meeting with us on numerous occasions and contributing greatly. As Doug went through some of the changes that we're very excited about in seeing in some of the verbiage within the plan, we're excited about that they do seem to have a very genuine concern about the preservation of ag land and the preservation of some of the other areas that we've been talking about and looking at. So we're excited to see some of that verbiage in there. So we anticipate and continue to look forward to a good working relationship with the City of Nampa through that process. What we also have seen is from the early inception of the map, a great deal of reduction from what was earlier proposed. That came through a number of series of meetings with citizens as well as our department. So we certainly want to applaud that. With that said, there's still some ideas and recommendations that we would like to offer for your consideration. We would desire actually further discussion on the boundaries to the south and to the west that you have seen. And some of the testimony you have heard, I think that there's some echoing that we may have on that, on those boundaries. Again, I think that the city is putting in policies and procedures and objectives within the plan that might be able to help address that. But we still feel like that there's some elements we need to take a look at the reduction of that area, that even more so on the south end and potentially even on that west side. One of the things that we were looking at doing is a regular review of impact areas. We're talking with all of the cities within Canyon County about the potential of reducing their impact areas so that we could meet and discuss that on an annual basis. So we may be looking at annual reviews of this and then allow for other opportunities for adjustments therefore. That's something that we would be wanting to look at and would propose. And in some of the discussions we've had, I would guess that the City of Nampa's planning department would be very open to working with us on that on an annual basis. I appreciate the fact that there's going to be looking at a comprehensive plan review after 5 years. We're looking at doing something very similar. Probably when our comprehensive plan is adopted, we're probably going to look at a every year, every other year review and try to update ours. So that we want to be very consistent with the cities of Nampa, Caldwell, Middleton, and the rest of them. So that's something we're looking at and would recommend that we be able to enter into that with you, as well as the reduction, again, there with the annual review. Continued dialogue to address elements such as setbacks for intense agriculture, the transfer development rights, some of the other issues that were addressed, I think is very, very important. We continue to have those discussions. Certainly what's going to be accompanying this is the update of the 2005 Area City Impact Ordinance that Nampa has. So we look forward to working with you on that element as well. And then continue to participate with us in completion of our comp plan, if we might ask you to continue helping us through that. You heard a lot of good comments, I thought, from the audience today regarding their concerns and issues. Farmland and ag is a major element of Canyon County, and we hope to keep that, but we also understand the growth and expansion. One of the things I do want to touch base on, just to provide clarity for you, and which you probably already know, but also to the audiences in the plan, and it's stated with Canyon County as well, but in yours on 5.14.5 area of city impact, statement says the boundaries of the area of city impact are contingent upon negotiation with Canyon County and adjoining municipalities and should be developed in a timely fashion. So for those within the audience, they know that this is not the last step of the process. There will be continued negotiations with the county as well as with the city as we go through this element. So that's, I probably have used my 3 minutes, and I thank you for allowing me maybe an extra couple of minutes. I shared with my staff, my presentation actually was going to be about 20 minutes, so thank you for the 3. three plus. But again, we're very much in favor with what you're doing. However, we do think that the map needs to be looked at again.
Thank you. All right, and then Jeffrey Holt?
Good evening. Jeffrey Holt, 4208 East Trekker Rim Drive, Boise, 83716. Sorry, just moved and had to remember that address. Madam Chair and members of the commission, my question is, I can't really get a clear look at where our property is located, but we're on Happy Valley, just south of Lewis Lane, between Lewis Lane and Deer Flat, and just wondering to see how this affects our property in question. And I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody could help me with this or not. Yeah, it would be on Happy Valley, south of the seed farm, on
Happy Valley and Lewis?
yeah, just south of, yeah, just not quite at Lewis, just one parcel removed from Lewis, but closer to Lewis than to Deer Flat,
North of Lewis or south?
south.
You're already in the area of impact.
Yeah, we have 80 acres in the area of impact, and there is one 40-acre piece that we own that's contiguous, and it's landlocked by our 80 acres that we own, and it got left out of the area of impact previously. And so we're just hoping to make sure that all of our property is all inclusive of that area of impact. It just becomes troublesome that it's not.
You don't want to be half in the county and half in the area of impact.
Yes, yes. And currently we have a low-density residential designation on the current comp plan land use map, and then an ag on the other 40. So it just makes it challenging. The property has not been farmed in years. Its topography is such that it's got a lot of lava rock on it, and it's not flat. It's just not a farmable piece of real estate. And so therefore I was just curious about making sure that on this change, if we could have all of our 120 acres inclusive of the area of impact. We have a desire to be annexed into the city of Napa. And commissioners, I don't know how long you've served here, but I served 8 years on a city council and was mayor of a city. So I appreciate your indulgence with all these comments and you having to make decisions and take public testimony and weigh up all the comments. I grew up in the Coachella Valley, and we had a big farming area, and we had a lot of growth come in and take out a lot of farmland. And so I've been through all this before, and I wish you the best. But
Doug, are you getting this information to where he lives?
we have, we're at 9400 South Happy Valley Road. We're just south of the seed farm on Lewis Lane, on Happy Valley Road.
Sir?
Yes.
May I suggest that you give them a call tomorrow and talk to Doug, and he can jot down and give you the information?
Yes, I appreciate it. Yeah, I emailed Doug a copy of our property, and it's L-shaped. You see it? Okay. Great. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else present that would like to speak for the proposal? Against? Undecided? You want to? Okay, what's your name? Jonathan Martin, 9249 Schism Road. Come up here to, well, Jonathan Martin, and what was your address? 9249 Schism Road. Okay. Got you on the record. Okay, you guys have questions for staff, or?
I do.
Comments?
Hmm?
Doug, do you have any additional comments?
Yeah, maybe I could respond to a couple of the comments that were given today. In terms of the notification, so there were 1,300 identified we have the capacity to be able to identify all the properties that were south of the current area of impact. And so we sent notices to all of those properties. We've had, oh, go ahead.
Chair and Commissioners, thank you. We did not send notifications to all properties south of the area of impact. We tried to focus on areas that had the majority of landowners. It is not possible, I don't think, with our small department to send notifications to all property owners. While we tried to do our best, we relied heavily on notifications that were sent out, word of mouth. It was on our website. It was notified, this public hearing was notified in the paper. So while not all properties, the majority in that south area.
Were those signs posted out there too, like those sandwich?
No, by state code, we do not have to post property because it's more than what, it's so many parcels.
It's huge, yeah.
And then we also, by state code, do not have to mail out notices if it would go to over 200 people. So we tried to do this as a courtesy, and did our best, but by state code, we didn't actually have to mail out anything.
And Madam Chair, I want to just say that.
That was them back there.
Thank you. And it's not just that we're trying to follow state code. We did beyond what state code required. It's just impossible for us to send out notices to every single property in the entire area that we're discussing. It would kill my budget. It wouldn't be possible for us. And so what we do, what state law allows us to do, is notice it in the paper. We went beyond that. We held several different workshops to try to get the word out as much as possible. And so that's where we're at. We went beyond the requirements of state code to do this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess I shouldn't speak in absolutes, so thank you. And then in terms of the 150 notices, so in the mailers that we had, and individuals that came to the meeting at the school, and anybody that was interested, we got, and were willing to send us their address, we got that information, and then we sent out the notice about this meeting. So again, as Ronnie suggested, it wasn't required, but we did so because we felt that it was important. In terms of the mixed use near the park, that mixed use land use setting is a fairly broad setting, and it can include standard subdivisions all the way up to duplexes, triplex type of development. It's important, I think, for everybody to know that whenever there's a proposal, a land is annexed and there's a proposal for that land, it does go through a public hearing. The adjacent property owners are notified, and there is a process that we go through. It just doesn't happen automatically. So I think that's important to distinguish that. And lastly, I just wanted to, again, thank Steve for his comments. We are working with the county. This is a bit of a process between now and when this is adopted, if it's adopted. And we are certainly willing to work with the county on any concerns that they have. And we do have a very good working relationship. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
So if this was approved, it could still change if you go back and talk with the county? Or would this come before us again?
I'm going to defer to Rodney on that process.
So we can't expand it beyond what the city council officially approves. We can't go more. If we negotiate down, we'll still have to have the council approve it, but we likely wouldn't come back to you. I need to check with our attorney to make sure that that's true, but I believe that's the case, that if you recommend a larger area than what we have eventually take to the county, that we'll need the approval of the city council, but I don't believe we'll have to come back to you for that recommendation.
So Rodney, does that mean that we should approve this or we should not and have them negotiate and then come back? What's the best course of action? Because it sounds like the county wants to continue the discussion. And so is it moot for us to recommend approval if it's just going to come back to us anyway?
Madam Chair and Commission, that's a tough question. I think it comes down, and Steve and I have talked about the concerns and the thought about reducing the size, and we both have the same intention here. We want orderly growth, and we don't want to take up ag land. We both have that same intent. And so how we do that is the question. Does not expanding our impact area prevent people from annexing, these people's neighbors annexing into the city when they want to develop their property? No, it does not. It doesn't prevent that growth from happening. And so it simply provides a method for us to do good planning. That's pretty much it. So does it change their taxation? No, it does not. Does it change what zone they are in the county? It does not. It doesn't change anything until we go through annexation. And the city's policy up to this point has been that we don't force the annexation on people. So, maybe that will change, but I haven't seen that in 20 years. So I guess I just look to this as a good approach to adopt an impact area boundary that we've proposed so that we can plan for that future. So that's my response.
And that future could be 50 years out.
It could be.
75 years out.
The state code says, as was mentioned, that a timely manner. And I'm not sure what that is exactly. That's not clear in state code. But if we want to plan for long-range utilities, I think there was a comment earlier that we can't serve that. That's true. We can't serve that area right now. So if we're going to grow into that area, how do we plan for that? Well, we identify that area as a place that we're going to grow in the future, and then we put resources towards planning for that to be serviced with utilities. Otherwise, all we're doing is we're staying within the boundaries we currently have, and then when growth comes and it requests annexation and a future city council approves that annexation, then we're left trying to catch up with the growth that's happening instead of planning ahead.
Does area of impact also kind of set, I mean, with the legal, and sorry, I'm throwing a legal question out here, but does it kind of set the boundaries legally for letting other cities, surrounding municipalities and cities saying, hey, this is our space, don't invade it, I mean, because if we don't, Meridian could just, we call it the Meridian creep, the Ada County creep, right? We don't want to, but I mean, is that kind of what AOI is for, is to kind of set those boundaries and say, here's our footprint, how immovable is the AOI for other cities to?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Kirkman, that's a loaded question as well. We have a situation where another city is trying to expand their impact area into our existing impact area. That doesn't happen that much, though. I would say that generally cities kind of agree, hey, you put this line down, we're not going to try to plan for growth in your area. There are exceptions to that, and I've seen 2 of those over the last 20 years here in Nampa, where other communities have tried to expand into our impact area and haven't been successful because it still has to go through the county to get that approval. But I've seen that happen, and nothing would prevent them from annexing in to our impact area. But it is kind of a
Gentleman's agreement?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. In a lot of ways, it's this agreement to say this is the boundary where we're planning to grow. And then other cities understand that they're putting resources into planning for that long term.
Rodney, do we have to do all of these areas at one time, or could we do like the north at one time tonight and east tonight and then the south next year? Or do we have to do them all right now?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Kehoe, you can recommend whatever this commission, chooses to recommend. You couldn't go beyond what was noticed in the paper. We can't go beyond what was.
But we can go less.
You could go less.
Yeah, 'cause I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. The areas to the north and to the east of us, and Caldwell coming in from the west, definitely we need to react quickly to those areas, or we're going to lose the ground. They'll be there ahead of us, and like you said, somebody's already trying to get there. But this area to the south, to me, there's no other city down there. I can't imagine Melba's going to say, hey, I want to, come up into your area.
Elba's a hot spot.
Well, but not that hot. So I'm saying, what I was wondering is if we could take the areas to the east, the north, and the west and do something with them tonight, but not necessarily with the area to the south.
You certainly could make that as a
So
recommendation. on
the way I
city
see the
council.
area in the south, it's not as susceptible to impact from other cities because there aren't any other cities nearby. But the area to the northeast and west, we need to do something quickly because we're growing leaps and bounds.
Sure.
So, and then when I first moved here back in the early 80s, and I did research on the area, and when I heard about all these seed farms and the seed crops that we grew here, I said, nah, come on. But, they're right. We lose that. We're not going to have the same quality of carrots that we have nowadays. All these things are going to be gone. That land's going to be gone. If it was good land someplace else, they'd already been doing it there. So I don't want to lose the agricultural history that we have. But those other areas, let's get it quick and get it out of here. My opinion.
So I'll jump in and say something too. I think, first and most importantly, I want to thank everybody for coming and participating tonight. It's really important to us as commissioners to see the public. What I don't want to see happen though is for us to make a decision based one way or another, and then you think, okay, now I'm done. I don't have to worry about it for 20 years. I want to see you stay involved. I want you to tell all of your neighbors. I want you to be passionate about where you live because that's what we are. Like Rodney says, we want to see responsible growth. We want to see good things happen for the city of Nampa and for our Canyon County. That's why it's important for all of us, not just us up here, not just for the city, not just for the county, but all of us as community members to come together, to come to meetings that the city puts on and the county puts on. All of you guys have internet access, or most of you should. Get on the county's website, get on the city's website, be as active as you possibly can to proactively, positively change and affect that growth. Because that's what it takes. It takes all of us working together, not just a few people making a decision, but give your feedback. Come to the meetings. We're at most of them. I am in part of this and a lot of other commissions and media involvement too, because it's important to me. I'm born and raised here, and I don't plan on leaving. I want to see good things happen for the city and for the county. So I would just encourage you to please tell your neighbors, tell your friends and family, and anybody you can talk to be active. Please, I implore you to be the positive change that we need for the city and the county.
I would entertain a motion to close public hearing, so we can discuss
Can we
this.
still ask questions of staff?
We can still ask questions of staff after we close it.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye. So I'll just make a comment, I wish there was a land use designation that said, we don't know, but we want to have the opportunity to put it in the area of impact, and who knows what's going to happen, because everybody that spoke tonight is correct. The seed industry drives a lot more growth than just farmland in this community. It provides jobs for scientists and industrial warehouses and office space for these companies, and we are the largest seed producer in the world, I believe. So I can understand why you came tonight and passionately when you see a plan like this that says community mixed use, commercial, low density residential. So thanks for coming and giving us your comments. And I think I'm learning a lot tonight. This is the hardest part of our volunteer jobs, I think, is talking about comprehensive plan and long-term planning, because we don't do it for a living and we rely a lot on staff, and we've got great staff at the city of Nampa. So I know your comments are heard and they're taken to heart. So just wanted to say that. And I don't know, the area to the south, I think this is the 2040 comprehensive plan. That ground should, I don't know if I'd be supportive of reducing the overall plan, but we can talk some more about that before we make a decision. I wish there was I like pink, so like a bright pink box that says, we don't know yet, but we'll figure it out.
The big question.
Doug?
And I would say also that just because you're on the plan doesn't mean next year you're going to be annexed and zoned. There's a path to annexation, and you have to be contiguous with the city parcel to get annexed. So though you're in the county, you're still in the county. You're not, your ownership's not changing, or your tax base isn't changing.
So Doug, as you noted, and we all noticed, you had your initial plan that showed a lot of area south of town being, and then you reduced it down to this. Can you help me understand the reasoning behind the area that you did leave and why you wanted to leave that area?
Certainly, Madam Chair and Commissioner. So the reason that we stayed where we were is kind of twofold. Highway 45 is, there is a movement down 12th Avenue with development, and that's one of the pathways to annexation. So for any commercial to be located on that corridor, there has to be some element of residential mixed in there. There's a certain number of residences that are required to support commercial and vice versa. And we're trying to get more commercial down in the southern part of Nampa. We're trying to invite that, just to reduce drive times, air pollution, all the things that are associated with that. That was the reasoning for that residential mixed use in the south end there. The low-density designations and the very low-density designations have more to do with buffering and trying to create a buffer between residential, higher density residential and the ag. So that's why we proposed the land uses that we proposed in this area. We stayed out of the intensive land use designations, with the exception that the county does have over on the west side some intensive land use designation over near 45, where there's some crossover there, and I think that's some of the area that we have to negotiate with the county. But on the east side, that's all out of the intensive land use designation the county has placed on their comprehensive plan. So that's why we went that far north.
Well, I guess kind of a comment. I think I personally agree with it, and I think most of us here do, that we want to preserve all this ag land down there. And it sounds to me like you're making an argument that the best way to preserve that is to include it in the area of impact. Well, is that true? Is that your argument, I guess?
So we're concerned about, on the fringe, there's been a number of subdivisions that have been proposed in the county that are not contiguous to city property, so they're county developments. And if within the area of impact, the city of Nampa has a joint agreement with the county in terms of land use, and in our involvement with that land use. And it's much stronger underneath that joint use agreement than it is outside of that joint use agreement. So not being in the area of impact, we have very little say. We can provide comment. The county is very gracious about receiving comment, but we just don't have the same impact that we would as if it was in our AOI. And the other concern that we have is that if there are developments that start coming down in that direction, and say that annexation starts moving in that direction, somebody can annex into the city that's not in the AOI, and then we have no planning designation for that. And that's kind of leaves us in limbo as to what do we designate that if they're gonna annex in?
But that would have to come before us and be approved, right? Like, we
Absolutely.
could still,
Yes.
if it didn't fit with
Yeah.
what we're hearing today, we could still
right.
put a stop to that.
Yeah.
And I think it just comes back to that good plan for orderly, if and when that comes, that orderly growth of the city and planning for that in the future. One question I had was when when Highway 16 meets I-84 and that interchange there, I would imagine that that's going to change some truck traffic from South Nampa. And instead of rolling down 12th Avenue in downtown Nampa, which is the state highway and the designated truck route now, I would imagine that that truck route is moved South Nampa over to McDermott and probably down to the freeway. Does that come into play at all when looking at AOI, the transportation systems, and was that kind of looked at and discussed that? Because that's 10 years all of a sudden.
Yeah, again, we did look at transportation. We don't know where there's been a number of different proposals as to where that would go if it were to go east or go up 12th and go around. So there's been talk of 7th. There's lots of different proposals out there, but we did consider that. But that again is kind of a little bit far out into the future in terms of where that's going to go and when that would be developed. So that didn't weigh heavily on the decision in the land use settings out there, because it's not defined yet. There are so many different routes. So,
Madam Chair, and Commissioner Kirkman, the one thing I would say, though, is if State Highway 16 continues to the south along McDermott, we recognize that there's going to be significant pressure to develop that area along there that is different than just low-density development.
Yeah.
And so you can see on, Doug, if you can go back to that last slide you were on, you can see that we included that residential mixed use, community mixed use along that McDermott corridor for that anticipation. Eventually, that's the goal, to get State Highway 16 to the south. And so those land uses are important for us to look at along that corridor.
And just kind of like a general statement, but these developments you're talking about, like on 16 and where it goes and where it stops and so forth, that's going to make that area more desirable than it would normally have been because there's better transportation access to it now. With the area south of town, not going to get all these infrastructure and speed highways and things like that, so there's going to be less pressure on that area. But I've always said, and I always agree, or will still always agree, that if a farmer owns his land, he should have the right to sell it. I mean, these people, they've got an investment maybe for 20, 30 years, 60 years, 120 years. They have a right to sell that whenever they want to. And if somebody doesn't like it, they should buy the land from somebody else instead of, letting it go back into houses or something. So, and that's why I'm kind of on the fence about the area to the south of town, because I want to see these farmers stay there. I want them to be able to survive, and I don't want us to put pressure on them. But we can't say to them, hey, farmer, we want your land, give it to us, we'll pay you, X numbers of dollars. That's not going to happen. It's going to be when you want to sell it, or for some reason somebody offers you enough money, you want to sell it. So if you don't want to sell it, you don't have to. We can't make you sell it. It's up to you. So maybe you guys need to make a cooperation where If Bill wants to sell his farm, the co-op buys it instead of selling it to some developer. Think about what you can do to preserve the farmland. And it has to be economic is going to be the big draw. So you've got to get together if you want to and decide what you want to let go and what you want to keep. And work together to keep that. I mean, I don't want to see it go, but the economics is what's going to make it go or not. So start thinking about what you can do to help each other out. I'm done.
I guess my comment would be that we need to keep that land ag land, and we got lots of other space we can develop first, before we ever need to get to that. And I wouldn't like, I don't want to see that area developed until we can provide plenty of commercial support. I don't want everybody driving around the lake to get into town, you know, and the services that have been brought up, like that's got to all get established before we can develop that. The only reason I would want to put this into the area of impact is if it, for some reason, gave us more leverage to be able to protect the ag land.
Yeah.
And if, from what I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a little slow, but what you're saying is if it's in the area of impact, Nampa has the ability to say no to the stuff that, and we will. It sounds like our policy is to say no to subdivisions that are still in Canyon County, but in our area of impact. Whereas if it's outside of our area of impact, we have little to no say. We have to trust the county to say no to those things. But if we bring it into our area of impact, the citizens have to trust us to say no to those kind of things, I guess. But we've established that that's our policy. Do we trust the county to say no to the subdivisions? I don't know
There's a county.
I think we do. It sounds like they have the same intentions we do, and so it's, that would be my only reason for wanting to include it into the area of impact. And I guess I'm assuming that we're all on the same side of wanting to preserve that ag land. If we're not all on the same side, then maybe we don't want to include an area of impact. But, and then my other concern was, yeah, that designated time frame. Like, what does that mean? Like, I just like I was saying before, that there's a lot that needs to happen before that area can get developed. Are we anywhere close to that timeframe to develop that land? And I know you said that designated timeframe is a little bit ambiguous. What is imminent? Is it 10 years, 20 years?
100
Our
years.
plan goes out to 2040, right? So anyway, just some random thoughts. Quiet now.
And if I can beat this horse just a little bit more, I'm not sure it's quite dead, but if I was a landowner in South Nampa and I wanted to sell my property because someone has approached me, hey, you got 100 acres, you've been farming it, but guess what? I'm going to offer you this much money to sell it. If it's outside that area of impact, I can sell that land and they can go to the county and build a development there on that 100 acres. If I own that land and it's in the area of impact, and at some point I want to annex that to the city, that's going to be denied because one, it's not contiguous with anything else in the city. It's 3-4 miles out of town, still in the area of impact. But that's, I think, where the city has a little bit more leverage and control to say, no. One, we have ordinances and policies in place that does not allow that. And even if it did allow that, it still comes to a public hearing before us, and we can make the determination, like you were just saying, do we keep that ag, or do we change the density to, very low density? And so I do believe that moving this area of impact to where it's being proposed is advantageous to the city and to the current owners that are farming it, to keep farming it.
More protection for them.
Yeah. I know it sounds a little bit backwards, but I really do think that that's kind of where, I think that's what this is saying. So I think that would be our best bet.
Madam Chair, may I? So
like I'm being
there are some
corrected.
options before the commission.
Okay.
The commission could decide to keep the area of impact line where it is, but change the land use, propose changing the land use designations. Or you could propose to change the area of impact and the land use designations together. There's some options that you have, or recommendations that you could make to the council. So it's not an all or nothing type of decision. There are some.
If we change
Options.
the land uses, though, isn't that kind of defeating the purpose of the plan and what the city foresees?
There's been a lot of consideration about these types of land use settings, so there's been a lot of thought that's gone into this and work that's gone into it, particularly with the existing landowners on the edge of the area of impact. So that is something to consider. Yeah.
So the land use designations basically are just a steering component, correct? Because when they annex in, that's when the zoning will be set, right? And so just because there's a land designation on there, it doesn't mean anything at this point. It's just for steering the direction of planning and shows basically what the city's vision is for how we're gonna grow. It doesn't mean anything other than that. When the zoning is assigned is at annexation, which we've all said way down the road, so.
Yeah, but the annexation is, how this is zoned depends on the land use map designation for that area. So that's where it really weighs in, is at the zoning.
So we would just take out item H on the motion, where the agricultural land use setting is changed to very low density residential.
I'm sorry, it's a little late for me here. I'm an early riser here. I'm just catching up with you here. That is a designation in the Chapter 5 of the comprehensive plan to change the designation of agriculture to very low density residential. So
Can you give some explanation to, like, background on why we're getting rid of the agricultural and changing it to that very low density, or is there a difference other than name?
it's just name, yeah.
Madam Chair, can I provide a little clarification there?
Please.
Sure, go ahead.
So this comes back to our perspective that ag land should be preserved in the county, shouldn't be in the city. The city's role is to create density that preserves more ag land. So if you have 4 homes that are on an acre, or you have 4 homes that are on 5 acres out in the county, you're taking up different amounts of ag land by doing that, right? And so we perceive that the city's role is to provide greater density so that if we have a population increase, it's coming into the core of the city rather than going out and creating this sprawling city, right? And eating up more and more ag land. That seems so small when you talk about 4 homes, but if you talk about, 1,000 homes, then it makes a big difference if you go out in the county versus in the city. So our perspective there is very low density. We're not in the role, the city's not in the role of developing ag land. We're in the role of developing greater density than is allowed in the county. So the county is typically, depends on the zone that's out in the county, but you can get a 5-acre parcel out in the county. If you want to get more dense than that, you come to the city to do that. And so our perspective is there, we better not put it as ag land out in our impact area. We need to say that we are the ones that have the role of developing it as residential or commercial or whatever it is. And then it's the county's role to preserve that ag land.
That makes sense. And therefore, the designation from agricultural land to very low density, that's what we're getting at, is that we as a city, the city is developing or encouraging density. Whether it's very low or high or whatever it might be, rather than just agricultural, which we leave to the county.
Exactly.
All right.
What's the highest density that the county will allow? Is it the 5 acres? 1 acre?
It does depend on the area and
Well,
the
sure.
zone, but 1 acre is the smallest lot you can do.
And I guess I've gotten the impression that a subdivision with 1 acres, even though those are large lots, would still be detrimental to the ag land, wouldn't it?
That is consistent with all planning theory, yes.
Theory has yet to be proven.
So it sounds to me like the area in question is South Nampa. Do we want to break that off? Do we want to do anything different? Do we like how it is?
For me, it's still the same question I had initially is, you know, I don't have a problem with doing the south, but the county has expressed that there still needs to be some work done. And I just don't know if we approve that tonight, if that stops, or can we approve this and have it continue forward and the modifying gets done before it goes to council? Or I'm not sure exactly how that goes, but, you know, as far as the map amendments, I see it as trying to protect the ag land.
What's the time frame if we recommend, if we make a decision, how quickly is that gonna get on council's agenda?
So I'm currently scheduling out into March for city council. And we've got several projects that are still needing to be scheduled. So it would be a pretty significant amount of time before we went to city council. You could put that as a condition of approval. If you wanted to do this and you wanted us to go work with the county again, you could put that as a condition. We plan to do that regardless. So.
At least gives them a couple of months, right?
And the zoning for the county that's out there, the area that you took out of the original area of impact is all intensive agriculture? Is that?
So, Madam Chair and Commission, it's general ag, but on their comprehensive plan, they've identified certain areas that they would like to be as those TDR sending areas, and they've identified those as this designation of intensive ag land. That's primarily because of feedlots, dairies, that kind of thing that are already out there, and they're trying to have some kind of buffer around them. Is that correct? It's an overlay. So it's not a zone, it's an overlay that's giving that area designation.
Okay.
So if someone wanted to develop an area in your overlay of intensive ag, you would say no? Okay.
Way to put him on the spot.
I know he's not up at the podium, sorry, but. I don't know.
Anything else? So I'll make this extremely long motion. And I think that we just are kind of staying with what we got. I think after discussion, everybody's kind of on the same. And as far as conditioning our city's planning and zoning staff to discuss with the county, I don't know that that's necessary. They're gonna do that anyways. That's just good business practice, something that they would do, so. I just moved to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan map amendment, modifying the agricultural land use setting to very low density residential and changing designations on multiple areas throughout the impact area. The comprehensive plan text amendment to chapter 5, including A, removal of grammatical errors, B, further clarification on NAMPA's 4 quadrants, C, additional information on Canyon County's role in preserving agricultural land, D, the addition of qualified open space language, E, a revised definition of gross and net density, F, revised language on the allowance of commercial development in medium and high-density residential land uses, G, the addition of pre-annexation policy for subdivision development in the area of city impact on county parcels and proposed expansion of the city's area of impact boundaries, H, the agricultural land use setting changed to very low density residential, I, the addition of language to address development within half mile from agricultural and very low density areas. J, the addition of a new strategy under Objective 2, Strategy 3, locate receiving areas for the county's TDR program and identify the additional incentives for developers for the city of Nampa with all conclusions of law and any staff conditions or comments in the packet.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval to City Council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and do the last two. Walk in the hall, pretty please. Boise State won in the last 20 seconds of the game.
Oh, wow.
65 to
So that's what you've been doing this whole time?
62.
Instead of being part of our conversation.
No, it's been over for an.
That's right, you've only got to break it down.
That's how they've been the last 3 games. Okay, we can wait for Michelle and Matt.
Yeah.
Now you guys have learned all about planning and zoning, huh?
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering what Doug was doing all this time at work, but now it's obvious.
Crazy. Okay.
I bet. That's some pretty involved.
These glasses to see that stuff. All right, I'm getting ready.
It was a very good presentation, though, Doug.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good job, Doug.
Very detailed.
A lot of information to figure out how to present in a.
And coherent.
Not take 3 hours to do it.
Huh. Okay, all right. Public hearing item number 4, conditional use permit. We have the applicant here. Okay.
I make a motion, we pass this anyway.
He's waited all this time. We're gonna hear from him.
We're gonna hear what he has to say.
Hello, my name's Dennis Harmon at 1012 4th Street North, Nampa. Madam Chair and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity here. I'm here to represent Shelley Sandlin on a property at 1517 Madison Avenue, a half-acre property that is located right next to the freeway in an industrial area. The intention here was to, she has a recycling business that has no public attendance, but it is used for storage of some containers which really have been replaced. She's really doing, really has an online business, and so they don't use the containers, but there has been, they do store containers there. And she also resides at that location.
Okay.
So our intention there was to get a conditional use permit to use the, to use that facility, to use that property for that intent.
Okay.
I have a question for you, sir.
Sure.
Somebody sent us some pictures, I'm not sure who they were, but it doesn't matter. Is there any way that these things, the containers can be stacked singly instead of on top of each other? Because when they're on top, they're quite high according to these photographs.
I think initially when they were brought in, it was just, you know, get them moved and so they can figure out a coordination of the height. And since then they have, do I have control over that? We downloaded some, I'll get it up. Okay, I brought a thumb drive in and they've cleaned it up. Once things kind of got
While
put.
you're waiting for that, it was also a question about whether somebody was living in this facility or not. There was lights on at night in a building.
In the structure that's there, there was the structure that's there was a living facility for like a caretaker facility.
Like a night watchman or type thing?
Yes, but there's, yeah, she lives there. She lives there with her family.
So there's something in the description about a new two-story structure?
It's existing structure that's there. There is a carport that's on the north side between, on the side of the freeway side that shows a carport. And what the intention there was to dismantle the carport and put in a second story, take down the carport, pour new foundation footings, and put up a carport or put up a two-story so she could do her online business, her recycling business in that, on that side of the structure.
So that's office space, not residential, or?
Yeah, it would be, what would be added would be office space.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to open those files for some reason.
Really?
Let me try this.
Do you want the thumb drive again?
Yeah, let's try that again. Oh.
HEI. Try to change the file name to a .jpeg.
Mr. Technical Support over
I have. Right, yeah. Is there a rename?
There has been some complaints about the container and the height, and she's made that change. But she also added a vinyl fence, a 6-foot vinyl fence that.
Yeah, there's a vinyl fence in the photograph.
Yes, it is.
But this is like way above that.
Right, it was, those containers are about 4 foot high, and there was 4 of them, so she was really high, and then they removed them.
Do it.
Just get out of the way, right?
So on this thumb drive, is it just these photos that are on the thumb drive that you want to show us?
Just the thumb, yeah.
'Cause we
Well,
have
not those, it actually will show from Madison, it shows
this photo here.
No. it
So
doesn't.
there's others on there that
There
you-
are.
okay.
There's ones you haven't seen.
This is,
Might run over to Walmart and have some pictures printed out.
I do have the picture here, but that won't be as good as up on the screen.
Yeah.
Right, the overhead. We need the overhead projector back. That's it.
Yeah. What happened to that thing? You don't have it anymore?
the old school.
That's me, old school.
So while that's coming up, what are the things she recycles that she had those containers for?
Well, she was recycling heavy metals, like copper and steel, and she had contracts with Lowe's, Home Depot, and Costco for cardboard and areas that would take glass. She would take glass. But now she doesn't, the containers are empty. They would go to the sites and be loaded and emptied and brought back empty. So that was really just a storage area for the,
So if you had like 100 containers and you had 80 clients, there'd be 80 clients with a container, then there'd be 20 left in the lot.
yeah, yes, there would be.
But she's not using them
20.
any longer.
She's not really, she's finding that the online is what is better for her anyway, but she still has those containers, and so whether she'll, because of that area, there's the industrial area, that there's some large lots that would allow her to even store some of those off-site, so, because she really doesn't use them.
Sure she's not a spy for Russia or someplace and drew these photographs?
My son downloaded it on my thumb drive for me, and I didn't think it would be that hard.
I like the little
I
cone.
could bring these up if you
Give them
want.
to Karen, she can pass them down to us.
Madam Chair, I don't think we're going to get these.
We got them passing around, so I think, yeah.
Ones in this picture are stacked too high.
Correct, that's too high, yes.
Not TWO, it's
TWO.
I'm sorry.
Anything else you'd like to share? Will the pictures come around?
There is a 55 and older modular mobile home park in the behind, and I think there was some concern there that there was the visibility, and I think that's a matter of putting vinyl slats in her chain link fence back there. The previous owner had chain link all the way around, but she's vinyled the Madison side. But my recommendation to her was to put vinyl slats in the back and try to, there are some trees on that property of hers that she could, that will mature and become less visible. But I think over time, her intention is to get rid of the containers anyway, but initially, they were overstacked.
Okay.
So the complaints are, this is the chain link fence from the pool side, so the complaints were coming from that neighborhood, if you will, the
Yes.
the 55 and older.
Yes, it was.
Anybody else have any questions for him? Okay, well, we'll hear from staff and we'll see if we have any questions after we hear from Rodney.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, Madam Chair and Commission, this is before you because it's a conditional use permit is required when there's ambiguous land use. It's not a specific land use called out in our land use table. So I'll get to that, but it's on an IP industrial park zoned property at 1517 Madison Avenue, and it's about a half an acre, as you can see on the screen here. Comprehensive plan shows this is industrial. It's right in the middle of a large area of industrial. The current land use is single-family residential home and what the applicant calls a caretaker residence and pickup, delivery, and storage of recycling containers. So this use is existing right now, but the question was brought up whether it is an allowed use. Surrounding land use and zoning to the north and west is the IP Industrial Park, Leah's Landing RV Park. That is currently not, if an RV park were to come into the city today, they would not be an allowed use, permitted use, but this is approved in the past. And and for some reason is in the industrial park designation. Not sure how that happened exactly, but it is what it is. To the south is the IP Industrial Park, and it is just a single-family residence on that property. To the east is the off-spec industrial campus. Pretty industrial all the way around there, you can see. There's the utilities. They're all available to the site except for irrigation. So this is the section of code that talks about those unlisted land uses and that the director may require a CUP when it's not clear, and that's what's happening here. And then, of course, the relevant conclusions of law for approving a conditional use permit that you've seen before and is in your packet. Nampa Building Department requested compliance with Title IV, and the caretaker residence building shall include fire sprinkling for the entire building because of its classification in the industrial zone. Nampa Engineering Division recommended condition there. Any future development of these sites is subject to the building permit, and that will be reviewed as part of that building permit process. See, and then the applicant mentioned Carrie Snow's comments from Leah's Landing. They expressed concerns about the multiple buildings and RV on the property currently being lived in. They believed that multiple buildings were being lived in and that there was an RV on the lot that was also being lived in. And she questioned whether that was an allowed use since it's not in an RV park. Also concerned that the containers are not empty and that they are stacked up to 4 containers high and had concerns about safety. And then she said, it's great that there's gonna be a fence, but she was concerned that if they're stacked multiple high, still can see the containers on the property. She submitted 3 pictures, and I just put 2 of them in here to show the stacking of containers that she was concerned about. And then the stacking of other materials in here. She also submitted another picture that was at nighttime with lights on. I think her intent there was to show that it's being lived in, the building is being lived in. And as a caretaker residence, it is an allowed use to be lived in. So area has a mixture of existing land uses, as you saw. Old residential units, relatively new RV park, and industrial buildings. This is a very mixed area of town. The comprehensive plan and zoning designates this area for industrial. The proposed land use appears compatible with that industrial designation. Intense industrial may not be compatible with the RV park, which is existing and residential in nature. But compatibility is only a consideration as described in city code for conditional use. And I just highlighted this section of code. I don't highlight this area very often, but it seemed very applicable here. Such use shall not be unreasonable or incompatible with the type of uses permitted in surrounding areas. Just wanted to point out that permitted in surrounding areas does not describe the existing conditions. It's describing what's permitted. As industrial uses are permitted in that designation. Nampa Planning and Zoning Commission will need to use that criteria for a CUP approval in Chapter 25 of our code. Here are the recommended conditions of approval. I should have put that, recommended. Compliance with all city codes, and any future development of these sites is subject to the Nampa Building Permit Plan Review. And then any other conditions that you wish to place on the property and the approval, including, as maybe the applicant recommended, that screening be done between the residential uses. However, that's already a condition in industrial areas that are next to residential. I don't think, I didn't even think about it until he mentioned it, but I think because the RV park is not zoned residential and is not officially a residential use, It's more of a commercial use. I think if you want to have that protection for the RV park, you'll need to put that as a condition of approval. And here is a potential motion for your consideration.
Rodney, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Apparently somebody is living in the building and we call them the caretaker. And then there's also the motorhome outside. So if the lady is the owner of the property, she could also be designated as the caretaker, correct? So she could live inside the building.
Yes. We have one caretaker residence and we wouldn't have multiple residences.
Right, that's what I'm getting to. So then the
Yeah.
motorhome, which somebody else is living in, or her, whoever, needs to go.
Yeah, a mobile home is not an official residence, so
Motorhome.
there's concerns about long-term living in a mobile home. They're not designed for that long-term.
You're saying mobile home, it's a
use.
motorhome.
Sorry, motor home. I knew exactly what you were saying. I don't know why I was saying mobile. But yes, RV or motor home, yeah.
Do we know for sure somebody is actually living in the motorhome?
I haven't seen any evidence of that, but that's something that code enforcement, if it became an issue and the neighboring property complained about it, they could look into.
So if we approve this tonight, it would approve one caretaker residence, and anything above that would be a code violation.
That's correct.
Well, and also, it ain't cheap to put in a fire sprinkler system, so somebody's gonna go back and check on that in 6 months or something, or how does that work?
That would be a condition of approval of part of the CUP. So I guess we'd have to contact our
department?
building department and just say they got approved and that we would follow up that way with them. And remember that a CUP can always be revoked. So the land use could just not be approved if they don't comply with the conditions of the CUP.
Could be taken away from her.
Yes.
Close the public hearing?
Public,
Do public testimony.
yeah, been to public testimony. I just had Dennis on there signed up for. Is there anybody else present that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this? Okay, now.
I have a question for the applicant. Just, you're aware that you need to put fire sprinklers in the entire building? Sorry.
Come on up.
You can just shake your head if you don't.
Plans were submitted to the city. It kind of initiated all this, a full set of drawings engineered with MEPs to the building department, and that sort of initiated that. And so in the process, there was the understanding that most likely will be fire sprinklered. And so as the holiday came up, just to go back, the holiday came up, she did buy a fifth wheel trailer that she parked there that she uses off-site, but it's not intended to be lived in or people living there. It was just, lights were on and it was brand new and was checking it out. So there wasn't anybody living in it, but it probably looked like it when they had it on during the holidays just to test things out, so.
Okay.
And if there's any renovations done to the caretaker residence, that would probably be a good place for her to stay temporarily while everything's being renovated
In the motorhome.
in the motorhome.
Oh.
Or is, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just making
well,
some
yeah,
assumptions
but the
here,
addition that, the plans that were submitted just shows over the carport, we're just gonna add a second story to that, and then that will be the office area and sort of her garage.
For her to continue living where she is in that, in that caretaker residence requires fire sprinkler system.
That's right.
And so is that in there now?
No.
Okay, so what I was just assuming is that when that gets placed in there, the construction or whatever, maybe that
Oh, yes,
RV
you're
would be a
right.
place
Then
that she
that would
could,
be,
yeah.
that's correct, yeah. I don't
I don't know
think
how long
of
it's
the
gonna take to
impact
do
of
that,
that.
but
You're right. So that may be your temporary residence. Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the conditional use permit for an ambiguous land use to allow storage of empty recycling containers behind a screen fence and caretaker residence and shed in the IP zoning district at 1517 Madison Avenue for Dennis Harmon, representing Shelley Sandlin with all conditions and findings in the staff report.
And can we add 2 conditions, please?
I don't know, what are they?
Slats being included in the fence.
Okay,
Slats. And also no stacking of the units more than 2 high.
got it. It's in my motion. It's like a team motion.
Well,
We have a second.
is there, well, hold on a sec.
If Jeff gets finished.
Yeah, so the containers, is there room to not stack them too high right now? I mean, that's,
The aerial photograph.
I'm okay with the fence and the slats in the fence, but I don't know if there's room. If we say that that's a condition, is she gonna have to go and take all the top level ones down and find a place to put them?
And the fact that it's an industrial area.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna, so.
No stacking, but slats in the fence, yes.
Slats in the fence, screen it, screen the containers, but no restriction on how high they can.
An industrial zone.
Stack. I agree with that. It's compatible.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been. Too many seconds. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use permit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye. I think we should add the stacking, but that's the only complaint I have.
Okay, I gotta read this thing here. This CUP will become effective 15 days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on this CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff that there have been no appeals. All right, thank you. Okay, conditional use permit for multiple family residential. Do we have applicant? Yay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commission. My name is Julie Miller, 725 East 2nd Street, Meridian. We are here to request a conditional use permit for a multifamily residential use in the BC zone. We are aware of conditions of approval recommended by staff and do not have any objections to this. Stand for any questions.
So you're trying to build something? Give me some more details.
So it's going to be a 288 unit apartment complex, 13 buildings, 3 stories high. One of the conditions of approval that we will be complying with is providing commercial uses on the ground floor facing Caldwell Boulevard. We currently have an ample amount of open space, so we do not feel we'll have any issue meeting the open space requirements at 5% of the total acreage, as well as the parking requirements for both the residential and the commercial.
Okay. All right, well, we'll hear from staff, and if we have any questions, we'll call you back up here.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, this is a request for multifamily in the BC zone, and it requires a conditional use permit, as you are well aware. You've seen these before. And to give you a little background, this is in the comprehensive plan. It's shown as commercial for this area. It's really close to the edge of our impact area, as you can see on the screen there. The current zoning is BC, or community business. And the surrounding land use and zoning is, to the north is County M2. That's the all hours auto salvage. To the south is the County R2 zoning, large lot, single family homes. To the southeast is BC, community business, and it's consignment sales of Idaho RV and boat sales. And RD, duplex residential, Pamela's Garden Estates, fourplex development. And then to the west is BC Community Business, West Valley Center, a business strip mall, and as well IL light industrial buildings. So again, this is an area that is kind of similar to the last one, where we have a lot of mixed uses in the area. There's multifamily, industrial, and commercial. Here's the utilities. A little bit of a distance for irrigation, but other than that, sewer and water are available to the site. And here's their site plan that they've outlined right now. This may change a little bit based on some of the conditions that we've recommended and that I've discussed with them prior to this meeting. And you can see they have open space, looks like a tot lot, a swimming pool, quite a bit of area for amenities for the residents there. So just quick history, March of 2000, annexation and zoning to BC. March of 2021 was a pre-application meeting for multifamily and commercial land uses. They had another pre-application meeting in May and another one in September. And each of those, they had different variety of different concepts that they showed, but all of them showed at least a potential for commercial on the site. So the last one was September of 2021. That was prior to our code changes in October of 2021. And so that brought us into some of the concerns that I brought up in the staff report, and we'll get to those. And that's on the screen right here. The applicable regulations in 10.3.2, the footnotes are that within 300 feet of Caldwell Boulevard, they need, if it's multifamily, the intent there is to not just fill all our commercial zoned properties with residential. We want to preserve some of those, like especially along the Caldwell Boulevard, for commercial. We want to see that those continue to be commercial. And so that was adopted in October, that be required. And so this essentially requires that the first floor of the buildings that are facing Caldwell Boulevard, within 300 feet of Caldwell Boulevard, would be required to be commercial on that frontage. They could have residential behind and above it, but that frontage facing Caldwell Boulevard would need to be commercial on the first floor. So that's what was adopted in October. And here are the relevant conclusions of law for adopting a CUP. You've seen those before. Correspondence, Title IV for Nampa Building Department. Compass, they presented a new kind of report for us, and I tried to review it and make sense of it, but it's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past, and it was just really challenging to understand exactly what they are getting at. They say that some things are good and some things that are bad according to their map, their CIM 2050. So as you can see, the report indicates reduced performance for pedestrian and bicycle level of stress, which is essentially saying that there's not a lot of great connections for pedestrians and bicyclists in the area. And then the other thing is, and it's not near a lot of public parks. You could argue that they're creating their own open space in this development, and that may not be as big of a concern, but I'll leave that to your interpretation. Things that improve performance are the net fiscal impact in that there's bus stops nearby. So that was the best I could do with that new report. I'd like to talk to Compass about it and just kind of get a more formal, organized approach to how we handle these. But that's what we received. Nampa Engineering Division had multiple comments. I'll just highlight a couple of those. They wanted to establish pressurized irrigation services, and they need to annex into the district. And then they need to coordinate their development with ITD and and with the city for access points and write-ins, write-outs, whatever is required from ITD. And they need to submit a full traffic impact study and have to submit that to ITD as well before a building permit is given on the property. Nampa Fire Department indicated the need for more fire staff and office staff. Pioneer Irrigation District just pointed out their easement for the waterway going through the southwest border of the property, and that they'll have to follow their conditions. They've already identified that on their concept plan, so I don't anticipate a concern there. Valley View School District submitted their comments and said Lakeview Elementary, Summit View Middle School, and Ridgeview High School are the three schools that would service this area. And they indicated they do have concerns about capacity at Lakeview Elementary and Ridgeview High School. They're over capacity, and they do not allow open enrollment for students residing outside the district boundaries. And then they said, if you approve this request, we encourage the development of sidewalks and street lighting, walking to school or the bus stop. So that was their comments. And then just quick staff analysis. As I mentioned, this is very mixed use in this area. There are multifamily units in the proximity. It requires a CUP. It didn't, at application, it didn't show that commercial that we talked about. I've since talked to them, and they are looking at that and know that that will be a requirement. It's in code. I can't just approve it without that commercial. And so I would just recommend that that be a condition of approval, that they meet those conditions, even though it's also in code that they meet that. Open space requirements, they're well beyond the required 5% that is required in the BC zone for multifamily. They're at 11%. Looks like they have plenty of area there. Here's the conditions of approval. And that first one is the one that I discussed about commercial land uses. And then those other ones are just consistent with the correspondence we received. And here's a potential motion for your consideration. I would stand for questions.
Any questions?
Let's go to design review. Rodney?
Yes, it will.
Okay. Go to public hearing. I have one person signed up, Scott Heyer, patiently waiting through the whole evening. Come on up. You know how this is done by now, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm getting pretty versed in this. My name is Scott Heyer. I live at 11315 Ustick Road. Currently the property owner of 3015 Caldwell Boulevard, which is the next door neighbor that, according to the presentation, was a consignment lot. It's actually being developed right now as a dance studio. My wife and I are local. We live just on the other side of the freeway, and that's where we're expanding our dance studio into, where it's labeled Moss Lane right there up there. So mainly at this, when I first initially came, we wanted to kind of just go as undecided, but we'd like to officially change that to opposed. And for kind of the following reasons. If you look at this section of Nampa, it sits there right in the no man's land between Nampa and Caldwell, which is mainly junkyards and apartment complexes right now. And if we want to improve the city of Nampa and Caldwell, we need to do something different than junkyards and apartment complexes. There's already Pomela's Loop behind us. If you go down the road right across the border into Caldwell, there's what's called Faith Landing. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a massive, very much similar to what they've been doing here. It's just a little bit further recessed from the road. In looking at this area, we would like to see the business access preserved a little bit more strongly than just saying, hey, you know, you can put a business in the bottom floor and continue to go up 3 floors. We don't feel like it's going to contribute to the overall improvement of that area of the city. We understand that people need to live and that land needs to be developed, but we don't feel that a 288-person complex is going to be the right solution for this area. The secondary concern that we have is parking overflow. If anyone is familiar with the apartment complex that went in on Cherry, right across from Steel Falls, right next to there, if you drive that road, it's initially it was just lined with cars because none of that area had enough parking overflow. And so I don't know what the calculation is with the city, but if that were to happen, we would need to err on the side of additional parking rather than just going to the minimum code, because our lot is going to end up being the temporary overnight parking space for anybody who, you know, needs a spot to park in. And having to police that and tow cars, and that's just gonna be not the greatest place for us. In addition, we do cater to primarily children in our particular business, and we'd like to continue to improve it. Now, what they have proposed, I can't say that it's not going to be aesthetic. I don't see enough detail for it at that point, but that's kind of our reasoning for wanting to see a different type of development plan for this part of Nampa. So,
Thank you.
Julie, you want to come back up and answer some questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Parking, how are you going to handle that?
Well, currently, we have, on our current site plan, we actually have a surplus of, I believe, 56 parking stalls. Obviously, the count is going to change a little bit once we add our commercial uses to it. But that being said, we should still definitely be able to meet the code requirements and potentially have additional surplus parking as well.
Okay. That's all I had to do.
I know this is, yeah, I'm sorry. I think,
Go ahead.
I know this is a question it's probably you can't answer, but what type of commercial business would you anticipate in a project like this at this location?
Well, being that we pretty much just found out that we would need to include the commercial, we haven't really gone down that path fully yet. But imagine it would be something more of an office type use where you're not having late night open facilities, something like that, you know. So it wouldn't be in conflict with the actual residences.
Yeah, because I mean, the gentleman was speaking like this is kind of a no man's land there between Nampa and Caldwell. And I think when people get past Middleton, they hit the gas and try to get to Caldwell as quick as possible, or at least to Walmart as quick as possible. So I wouldn't anticipate any commercial business there that would be that type of draw for somebody in that area yet.
Yeah, and they
There's a lot
also
of
could be,
residential behind this too.
they
so-
could be uses that support the, you know, apartments as well, you know, like a small coffee shop or something like that,
Dance
potentially. Yeah, I was thinking you'd have a lot more, you know, clients, customers.
It's like it might be a boon for business.
Yeah.
Do you,
Okay,
how
thank
much,
you.
how much do you anticipate this site plan changing, knowing that you need to add that commercial?
Well, essentially, everything is going to be shifted towards the interior of the project because we'll have to provide parking along the front side. And then in addition to that, we'll probably be massaging our open space. See, the white part that you see up there is going to be, you know, pathways and more green space, which can be considered open space. The calculation that we currently have is just those green spaces, those green areas. So as you can see, we have a lot of room to play with in order to even beat the minimum 5% for open space.
Your number of units is going to decrease because of the commercial space.
It's going to decrease, but because we have kind of built in that additional space, we intend to replace it, you know, find a spot on the site to replace it.
You're
So
gonna add
towards the
another building.
interior of the property, that will probably be redesigned a little bit as well.
Okay, so you're not removing any units, you're gonna just move them back somewhere else in the property and then,
That's the intention, yeah. So long as we can make sure that we get our parking requirements, that's the main thing that's the highest priority.
I'm really surprised we haven't got anything about traffic.
this project.
We already knew we had to do the traffic study.
Everybody's
so-
giving up on Caldwell Boulevard.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
You get a pick between, I think, Ron and who was the other one?
Say anything.
Oh, who was it? It was Matt.
Matt and Jeff, I think.
Okay, Matt and Jeff.
Audie, what's the parking requirement? 2 per unit
It's 2 per unit plus
plus ADA?
ADA.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now public hearing is closed. No, it's 10:30, but we have to still do things by the book.
I'll comment. I like this project. I think it's good. I think we need housing. This is as good a spot as any. My only concern is, do we need to see the revised site plan before we move along, or do we just trust that they'll do what they're supposed to do? And I guess who approves that? That they get the commercial stuff in there and it all still works out?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, they have to get a building permit, and as part of every building permit, we review that, and we review it for the conditions that are placed in the conditional use permit, but that's just a requirement. We would not approve a building permit right now with what they had originally proposed. They'd have to meet all our conditions in the code, and they're built in, so it's not like they're gonna skirt these in any way.
It won't have to come before us for a plat approval.
No, if they just have the single property and they do it all on that single property, they will not have to do that.
I think it's Drew's turn. Make a motion.
I'll
Gonna
move
nominate
to
people.
approve the conditional use permit for multifamily residential in a BC zoning district at 0 Caldwell Boulevard for EV Studio. Julie Miller, representing River Range Idaho LLC, with all conditions of staff and conclusions of law.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use permit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I gotta read my deal. This CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff that there have been no appeals. Okay, thank you.